The moment my sister Sarah's perfectly manicured fingernails waved that document in the probate court, I knew everything I'd worked for over the past 3 months was worth it. The smug smile on her face was about to vanish, and for once, Grandma Rose's favorite lesson would prove true: the truth always leaves traces. Dear, you just have to know where to look. I'm Emma Chen, 32, a forensic document examiner with the State Crime Lab. It's not the career path my family expected when I declared my major in chemistry, but Grandma Rose had been the only one who truly understood. Sometimes, she'd told me over one of our weekly tea sessions, the most important stories are written in invisible ink. If only she could see how right she'd been. The probate judge, Honor Eleanor Martinez, looked between Sarah and me with the weary expression of someone who'd seen too many families tear themselves apart over inheritance disputes. But this wasn't just about money, this was about justice, about protecting Grandma Rose's real legacy. Ms. Chen, Judge Martinez addressed my sister, you've presented what you claim is your grandmother's final will, dated January 15, 2025, 3 weeks before her passing. This document leaves the entirety of Rose Chen's estate, valued at approximately $4.2 million, to you alone. Is that correct? Sarah stood straighter, her designer suit catching the fluorescent courtroom lighting. Yes, Your Honor. Grandma wanted to ensure her estate was managed properly. She knew I had the business acumen to handle it. I tried not to snort. Sarah's business acumen mainly involved running through 3 trust funds and 2 failed startup ventures, but I kept my face neutral, remembering Detective Rivera's advice: let them dig their own holes. The judge turned to me, and Ms. Emma Chen, you're contesting this will's authenticity? Yes, Your Honor. I opened my briefcase, maintaining eye contact with Sarah as I did so. I have evidence that this document is a forgery, created after Grandma's death. Sarah's lawyer, James Morrison, jumped to his feet. Objection. Your Honor, these are baseless accusations from a jealous sister who happens to be a certified forensic document examiner. I interrupted calmly, with the State Crime Lab. The judge's interest visibly piqued. Proceed, Ms. Chen. I pulled out my black light and the documentation I'd spent weeks preparing. Your Honor, I'd like to demonstrate something about the paper this will is printed on. Sarah's confident posture flickered for just a moment. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I'd grown up watching her tell lies at the dinner table. I knew all her tells. This will was allegedly signed in January 2025. However, the paper it's printed on contains security features that weren't introduced until March 2025. I switched on the black light, and the telltale fluorescent watermarks appeared. These specific markers were developed by Sterling Paper Company for their legal document series. They only began production 2 months ago. The forensic expert I'd consulted, Dr. Marcus Wong, stepped forward from his seat in the gallery. His smile was growing wider by the second. Sarah's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. But I wasn't done. The past 3 months had taught me more about paper manufacture, printing technologies, and document authentication than my entire career. Because this wasn't just about exposing a forgery, it was about understanding why my sister would betray our grandmother's trust so completely. The story really began 6 months ago, when Grandma Rose first showed signs of declining health. She'd always been the family patriarch, the steady hand guiding 3 generations of Chens through life's complexities. Her antique shop, Rose's Treasures, was more than a business, it was a community landmark where stories were traded as often as merchandise. Sarah and I had grown up among those treasures, learning their histories and secrets, but while I inherited Grandma's passion for uncovering the truth behind each artifact, Sarah saw only dollar signs. She'd spent years trying to convince Grandma to sell the shop's prime downtown location to developers. Your grandmother's original will, dated November 2024, is already in evidence, I continued, pulling out another document. It leaves the estate divided equally between Sarah and me, with specific provisions for maintaining Rose's Treasures as a community space. Judge Martinez examined both documents. And you can prove this earlier will is authentic? Yes, Your Honor. I gestured to Dr. Wong. The paper, ink, and signature have all been verified. Additionally, we have video evidence of Grandma Rose signing this document. Sarah's lawyer was frantically whispering in her ear, but she brushed him off. My sister had always been too confident for her own good. What video? She demanded. I nodded to the court clerk, who wheeled in a display screen. Grandma Rose insisted on recording the will signing. She said it was insurance against future misunderstandings. The video showed Grandma in her favorite armchair at the shop, surrounded by her beloved antiques. Her hands were steady as she signed the document, her voice clear as she explained her wishes. Sarah had been there that day, you could see her in the background, phone in hand, barely paying attention. That will was superseded, Sarah argued, but her voice had lost its edge. Grandma changed her mind. Did she? I pulled out my final piece of evidence, because according to her medical records, by January 15th, the date on your version of the will, Grandma Rose was in the hospital with pneumonia. She wasn't signing any documents. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Morrison, your response to this evidence? Sarah's lawyer tugged at his collar. Your Honor, we request a brief recess to what? Judge Martinez interrupted. To explain how your client forged a document using paper that didn't exist when her grandmother was alive? To justify backdating a will while Mrs. Chen was hospitalized? The courtroom had fallen silent. Even the usual shuffle of papers and whispered conversations had ceased. Everyone was watching Sarah, waiting for her explanation. But I knew there wouldn't be a satisfactory one. The truth had started emerging weeks ago, when I began investigating the irregular changes in the shop's accounts. Small withdrawals at first, then larger ones. Security footage showed Sarah visiting the shop after hours, accessing Grandma's office. What she hadn't known was that I'd installed new cameras after the first suspicious withdrawal. Grandma Rose hadn't just taught me about antiques, she'd taught me about protecting what matters. The footage showed Sarah methodically searching through files, photographing documents, practicing Grandma's signature. She'd always been meticulous in her schemes, but this time her attention to detail would be her undoing. Your Honor, Dr. Wong stepped forward. I've analyzed both documents extensively. The forged will show signs of digital manipulation. The signature was likely created using a high-resolution scan of Mrs. Chen's authentic signature, modified slightly to avoid exact duplication. Sarah's face had moved from gray to white. Her lawyer was now openly packing his briefcase. But there was more to the story, much more. The investigation had uncovered a web of financial pressures and desperate decisions that helped explain, if not excuse, Sarah's actions. As the judge called for a brief recess, I couldn't help but remember Grandma Rose's words from years ago. Family secrets are like antiques, dear. The real value isn't in what you see on the surface, it's in the story underneath. During the recess, I found myself standing in the courthouse hallway, staring at the framed photographs of previous judges. My reflection in the glass showed someone who looked more tired than triumphant. Detective Rivera appeared at my side, coffee in hand. You didn't mention the offshore accounts, he said quietly. Not yet. I accepted the coffee, grateful for its warmth. There's more to this than just the will. The investigation into Sarah's forgery had led us down a rabbit hole of financial transactions that painted a disturbing picture. My sister hadn't just been after Grandma's estate, she was desperate to cover up years of increasingly risky financial decisions that had left her millions in debt to some very dangerous people. When court resumed, Judge Martinez's expression had hardened. Before we continue, I should inform all parties that the court has received additional evidence from the district attorney's office regarding related financial matters. Ms. Sarah Chen, do you wish to revise your testimony? Sarah's new lawyer, Morrison, had excused himself during the recess, straightened her jacket. Your Honor, my client would like to. I'll speak for myself, Sarah interrupted, standing. The tremor in her hands betrayed her composed facade. I need to explain something about Grandma Rose. I leaned forward, surprised by the unfamiliar note in my sister's voice. Was it remorse? 3 years ago, Sarah continued, I made some investments that didn't pan out. I borrowed money from people I shouldn't have trusted. They threatened to hurt my family if I didn't pay them back. I thought I could fix everything if I just had access to enough capital. Judge Martinez's expression remained stern. So you decided to forge your grandmother's will? No, I mean, yes, but... Sarah's carefully maintained composure cracked. Grandma found out about my debts last year. She offered to help, but not the way I needed. She wanted me to go to the police, to face consequences. She didn't understand these weren't ordinary creditors. The truth hit me like a physical blow. The break-in at the shop last October, that wasn't random, was it? Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. They were sending a message. I needed to pay them back quickly, or next time they wouldn't just break windows. Dr. Wong cleared his throat. Your Honor, if I may? The document analysis revealed multiple drafts of the forged will on Ms. Sarah Chen's laptop. The earliest versions date back to September 2024. Before the break-in, I realized, you were planning this even while Grandma was trying to help you. Mrs. Rose Chen's original will included provisions for a trust fund, Sarah's lawyer interjected, specifically designed to help her granddaughter resolve these debts legally. I pulled out my tablet, opening files I'd hoped not to need. That trust fund wouldn't have helped much, would it, Sarah? Not with what you really owe. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, we've uncovered evidence of systematic fraud extending far beyond this inheritance issue. The court clerk distributed copies of my findings, bank statements, transfer records, shell company registrations. Sarah had been running a complex investment scheme, using her connections in the antique world to authenticate forgeries while selling the originals on the black market. Grandma discovered what you were really doing with her authentication papers, didn't she? I asked softly. That's why she installed new security cameras in the shop, not because of the break-in, but because she knew you were using her reputation to validate fake antiques. Sarah's face crumpled. She was going to report me, her own granddaughter, after everything I'd done to build our family's wealth. You mean destroy it? I corrected. Those investments you mentioned? You were gambling with more than money. You were gambling with Grandma's legacy, her lifetime of building trust in the community. Judge Martinez raised her hand, silencing us both. I've seen enough. This court finds clear evidence of will forgery, fraud, and potential criminal conspiracy. Ms. Sarah Chen, you are remanded into custody pending criminal charges. All assets related to Rose's treasures and the Chen estate are to be frozen until a full audit can be completed. As the bailiff approached Sarah, she turned to me with desperate eyes. Emma, please, you don't understand what they'll do to me in prison. Actually, Detective Rivera stepped forward. We do understand. The DA's office is prepared to offer protective custody in exchange for cooperation in identifying your partners in the authentication scheme. The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork and procedures. Sarah was led away, her designer suit replaced with an orange jumpsuit, but amid the chaos, a court clerk handed me an envelope I hadn't seen before. It was logged with your grandmother's personal effects, she explained, specifically to be delivered after any will dispute was resolved. Inside was a letter in Grandma Rose's distinctive handwriting, dated just days before her hospitalization. My dearest Emma. If you're reading this, then you've already discovered what Sarah has done. I knew she would try something after I confronted her about the forgeries. My only regret is not seeing you prove it, though I'm sure you did so brilliantly. The shop's real treasures were never the antiques themselves, but the stories they carried and the truths they revealed. You understood that from the beginning. Sarah saw only objects to be priced and sold. But you saw the history, the connections, the human heart in every piece. I've left instructions with my lawyer about converting the shop into a nonprofit foundation. The Chin Family Heritage Center will continue my work of preserving stories and teaching young people about the value of truth, in objects and in life. You'll find everything you need in the safe behind the Ming vase. The combination is your birthday, naturally. Remember what I always told you about traces? The truth leaves them everywhere, not just on paper or in ink, but in the choices we make and the lives we touch. You've always been good at finding those traces, my brilliant girl. Now use that gift to help others find their own truths. All my love. Grandma Rose. 6 months later, I stood in the renovated Rose's Treasures, now the Chin Family Heritage Center. The antique shop's main floor had been transformed into a community space where local historians gave lectures, students learned about authentication techniques, and yes, people still bought and sold treasures with stories worth preserving. Sarah had accepted the DA's deal, providing evidence that helped shut down 3 major forgery rings. She would serve 5 years, with mandatory counseling and financial oversight after release. More importantly, she had finally started therapy to address the underlying issues that had driven her desperate schemes. The Heritage Center's first major exhibition featured items from Grandma Rose's personal collection, each with its own story of discovery and verification. The centerpiece was a display about document examination and forgery detection, using Sarah's fake will as a teaching tool, with court permission, of course. Dr. Wang had joined our board of directors, helping establish a scholarship program for students interested in forensic science. Detective Rivera regularly brought his rookie officers through for seminars on investigating fraud and financial crimes. But my favorite addition was the Children's Corner, where kids learned about authentication through hands-on activities, watching them shine black lights on various papers and inks, their faces lighting up with discovery. I often heard echoes of Grandma Rose's voice. The truth always leaves traces, dear. You just have to know where to look. The shop's bell chimed. We'd kept it during renovations, and a familiar figure entered. Sarah, on her first supervised leave from prison, looked smaller in her plain clothes, but somehow more real than she had in her power suits. The place looks different, she said quietly. But the important things are the same. I gestured to the antique chairs where we'd spent countless childhood hours listening to Grandma's stories. Want some tea? As we sat together, surrounded by objects that held generations of truths, I remembered another of Grandma Rose's favorite sayings: every fake reveals something real, our desires, our fears, our desperate need to be something we're not, but authenticity, dear ones, that reveals who we truly are. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she held her teacup. I found out who I was in the worst possible way. No, I corrected gently, you found out who you were pretending to be. Who you are is still a story waiting to be authenticated. Above us, Grandma Rose's portrait smiled down at her two granddaughters, finally having an honest conversation among the treasures she'd left behind, not just the antiques and artifacts, but the harder, more valuable legacy of truth. The Heritage Center's newest program was set to launch next month, a series of workshops on financial literacy and ethical business practices, inspired by Sarah's story but focused on prevention rather than punishment. She had agreed to record a video message for participants, turning her mistakes into lessons others could learn from. As the afternoon light filtered through the shop's restored stained glass windows, creating patterns on the hardwood floors that had held 3 generations of Chen family stories, I thought about traces of truth, of deception, of love, of redemption. They were all there, if you knew where to look. And in the end, that was Grandma Rose's greatest gift to us both, the understanding that every object, every document, every human heart carries its own authentic story. Sometimes it takes a black light to reveal it, sometimes it takes a courtroom, and sometimes, it takes the courage to finally stop forging the life you think you should have, and start authenticating the one you actually do. The bell chimed again as Sarah's supervisor arrived to take her back, but before she left, she paused by the new sign above the door. The truth leaves traces, she read aloud. Grandma always did know best. I watched her go, then turned back to the day's work of preserving stories, detecting frauds, and helping others find their own paths to authenticity. In my office, the frame containing both wills, the forged and the real, hung as a reminder that the most valuable inheritance Grandma Rose left wasn't her wealth or her shop, but her unwavering belief that truth, like family, was worth fighting for. And in the end, she was right about all of it: the traces, the treasures, and the triumph of authenticity over artifice. Some might call it justice, but I prefer to think of it as Grandma Rose's final lesson, that in a world full of forgeries, the real treasure is having the courage to be genuine, even when, especially when, the truth hurts. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows through the shop's windows, but I wasn't ready to leave just yet. There were still traces to examine, stories to authenticate, and truths to preserve. After all, that's what Grandma Rose would have wanted. And somewhere, I was sure, she was smiling at how her granddaughters had finally learned to tell the difference between what's fake and what's genuinely precious.
My name is James Franco, and I'm just an ordinary office worker. My life is pretty boring, just going back and forth between work and home every day with nothing special to talk about. When I first started working, I dreamed of climbing the corporate ladder, but I'm not good at making calculated moves because of my personality. I often end up with jobs that nobody else wants to do. My inability to say no is my own enemy. Even though I work hard, I'm still a regular employee with no title to my name. However, there was a time when I used to be a lot happier and smiled more. I married my girlfriend, whom I had been dating since the start of my working life. We had a happy marriage, which motivated me to do well at my job. But that happy life didn't last long. Are you telling me to live on this meager amount this month again? A few years into our marriage, my inability to succeed at work frustrated my wife, and she often showed her irritation. I'm sorry, I do my best, I would say. How many years and how many times have you repeated those words? I thought marrying you would mean a better life, but with this low salary, we can't do anything. I'm fed up. My wife Rachel has always loved spending money on herself, from beauty treatments and cosmetics to nails, hair salons, and clothes. She was happiest when keeping herself beautiful. It seems she married me believing that life would be luxurious since I am a doctor's son. Indeed, my dad is a doctor and owns his own clinic. But my dad, who had a personality similar to mine, often saw his patients for almost charitable rates. He often provided care without profit for patients who were hesitant to seek treatment due to financial constraints. People can pay back when they recall it in the future as long as they are alive to do so. Money can't be made if you're not alive, my dad used to say. Because of this, despite being a doctor's family, we never lived a wealthy life. Of course, as a child, I never felt unhappy or questioned our way of living. I'm still proud of my dad to this day. However, Rachel decided to marry me because she thought being a doctor's son meant wealth, without knowing the real story. So our life turned out very different from what she had planned. A few years later, Rachel said, "I've had enough. If this is all we can do, there's no point in being with you. Let's get a divorce." "A divorce? Hold on, please," I pleaded. "How many years do you think I've waited? I age just as much as you do. I need to redo my life while I still can. I definitely don't want to be a low-income wife like you for the rest of my life." With those harsh words, Rachel left, leaving only the divorce papers behind. I was mad at myself for not realizing Rachel's true nature and for not being able to prove her wrong with my job performance. 6 years have passed since then. I threw myself into work to heal the emotional wounds, but being not savvy, I still couldn't achieve outstanding performance at work, remaining a regular employee. If this continues, what Rachel said would turn out to be true. I feel utterly miserable. During that time, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. It was from Rachel. What does she want now? I wondered. Inside the letter from my ex-wife, who I hadn't heard from in a long time, was a wedding invitation. It seems Rachel is remarrying someone else. Why would my ex-wife send me an invitation? I thought. As I looked at the postcard, puzzled, I noticed a familiar chapel name written on it. This place, isn't it a super luxurious hotel? Knowing Rachel, she must have chosen a rich man to be her partner this time as well. I could easily guess that she intended to flaunt her happiness in a luxurious hotel wedding, just to show the difference between her life now and the life she had with me. I don't owe her to attend. I mean, I was the one who got dumped, but maybe for Rachel too, me not succeeding in my job was an unexpected turn of events. After pondering for a while, I sighed deeply and stood up from my seat. This is the last time. I guess I'll just go. I knew attending the wedding would hurt my pride, but I decided to go anyway. Despite everything, Rachel stayed with me for several years. I can somewhat understand her desire to show me that she's finally happy as a form of revenge. From an outsider's perspective, she might seem too kind-hearted. On the day of the wedding, the weather was perfect. I arrived a bit earlier than planned and, while sipping my coffee in the lounge, stared blankly out the window. It was her second wedding, so I recognized a few of Rachel's friends who I had met before. Unexpectedly, I overheard a conversation from the seat next to me. "Rachel did an amazing job to get this wedding, didn't she?" one person said. "Yeah, it's in a luxury hotel this time. It's a level up from the first one," another replied. She used to complain that her first husband was a doctor's son, but when she found out he was just an ordinary office worker without money, it was really unexpected, wasn't it? Hearing them talk without realizing I was there, I felt a sharp pain in my heart. So Rachel never really liked me for who I was. I realized that when we got divorced, but hearing it from someone else made it even harder. Before she divorced her first husband, she had already set her sights on her current husband. They continued. "Really well done, Rachel. Well calculated." I couldn't believe my ears. So, Rachel was already in a relationship with her current partner before she even divorced me. My pride was shattered to pieces. She looked down on me so much, but she was the one cheating. I started to regret even being there. Trying to maintain my composure, I took another sip of my coffee, but my hand was shaking. Rachel appeared in front of me, all prepared to move to the bridal room. "You really came. You're really a good person, right?" she said, sneering at me. Trying to hold back my anger, I responded, "Well, consider it my last duty. Glad you could find happiness." I forced a smile. Not liking my attitude, Rachel continued to belittle me. "Isn't it wonderful? It's incomparable to the time with you. Here's a share of happiness for the poor bachelor. Be grateful, will you?" she laughed sarcastically. Just then, a refreshing-looking man spoke to her from behind. It was the groom, her new husband. "Rachel, it seems like the relatives have gathered. Let's hurry to the bridal room." Her husband Scott glanced at me briefly and gave a slight nod. I nodded back reflexively. Perhaps the groom didn't know Rachel had invited her ex-husband to the wedding. "There's still some time before the ceremony, so please make yourself comfortable," Scott said with a pleasant smile as they were about to pass by me. At that moment, an older man following the groom spoke to me. "Excuse me for asking, but may I have your name?" "Dad, what's wrong?" Scott asked. Nothing, just curious," the older man replied. Feeling uneasy under the groom's dad's serious gaze, I responded, "My name is James Franco." "Franco, is your father a doctor by any chance?" The groom's dad suddenly seemed frantic. Staggering a bit under his intense presence, I nodded. Immediately, the color drained from his face, and he raised his voice. "Scott, the wedding is off right now." "What? What are you talking about, Dad?" Scott exclaimed. Caught off guard by this unexpected turn of events, I hurriedly stood up from my seat. "No, I didn't do anything," I said, still in a state of panic. The groom's dad began to prostrate himself at my feet. People around the venue started to murmur and stir. "Dad, what are you doing?" "No, really, what?" Scott urged his dad to lift his head, but he stayed bowed down, pressing his forehead to the floor. I was completely lost and had no idea what was going on. Rachel, caught in this embarrassing situation, turned red with anger and started to lash out. "Can we just talk about this? Lift your head, please," I said, trying to calm the situation. I persuaded the groom's dad to lift his head, and he began to plead for forgiveness, tears in his eyes. "I'm begging for your forgiveness. I've been unfaithful to Dr. Franco," he said. It seemed that the groom's dad, Gary, had some past connection with my dad. To understand the truth, I listened intently to Gary's words as he began to speak hesitantly. Gary was a fellow doctor like my dad. The story dates back to my early childhood when Gary was still a trainee doctor at the hospital where my dad had just started his own medical practice. My dad was known for his skills at a well-known university hospital. Gary, who was a student at the Associated Medical School, looked up to him. He volunteered to train at my dad's hospital and learn various techniques. One day, Gary's wife gave birth, but the baby was found to have a serious heart defect. The heart surgery needed was risky, and the chances of survival were slim, which made the other doctors hesitant to perform the operation. Desperate, Gary consulted my dad. My dad agreed to help and successfully performed the heart surgery, saving the baby's life. However, the medical expenses for the baby's condition were very high. Gary, being a trainee doctor at the time, couldn't afford to pay it all at once. With tears streaming down his face, he bowed deeply and asked my dad if he could repay the amount in installments. My dad just laughed and shook his head. "Someday, when you become a great doctor and have the time to remember me, come back and repay me then. I guarantee you'll definitely become a great doctor," he said, to keep Gary from feeling too pressured. Sometime after, Gary was sent abroad to study medicine and didn't return to the States for several years. Despite this, he never forgot his promise to my dad and continued to save money for the repayment. However, by the time he came back to the States, my dad's hospital was no longer there. The contact information had changed and they had lost touch. Not being able to repay the money had always weighed heavily on his heart, and he had lived all those years without being able to do anything about it. Today, he happened to see me at the hotel and was shocked. He said I looked just like my dad used to. "I'm truly sorry. Please, I'm begging you, let me meet your dad in person and apologize to him," he said, feeling Gary's intense emotions. I responded calmly, "That sounds just like my dad, but he passed away 5 years ago from cancer." Hearing the news, Gary stood there in a daze. "No way," he whispered, shocked. "Yes," I said softly, "he passed away just like that. Until then, he had been moving from one clinic to another. He was a wonderful doctor, always considering his patients until the very end." Kneeling on the floor, Gary broke down in tears. "Dad, this isn't the place," Scott said, trying to calm his father. "That scar on your chest, that's proof that Dr. Franco saved your life." Scott seemed to lose his words. He looked at me, then back at his father, confused and emotional. "You're able to have a wedding ceremony and be here today all thanks to Dr. Franco," Gary said, his voice shaking. He bowed to me again. "I want to repay all the kindness I couldn't repay to your dad. Please, let me do something." I quickly lifted Gary's face and extended my hand to help him stand up. "Mr. Gary, I'm really happy. Just remembering my dad is enough for me. The life my dad saved is now able to celebrate such a wonderful day like today." Being able to see the proof of my dad's existence makes me happy. I'm sure my dad would be happy too. Hearing my words, Gary started crying out loud again. The onlookers began to cheer and applaud, moved by the emotional scene. Rachel was the only one glaring at me with a look of fury. As the time for the ceremony drew near, I stood to the side, watching the event unfold. I couldn't help but reflect on the day's surprising turn of events. Scott and Rachel continued with their preparations, but there was a noticeable tension in the air. Gary stayed close to me, his eyes red from crying. "I'm so sorry for everything. Your dad was a great man, and I failed him by not finding him sooner," he said, his voice still shaking. "Mr. Gary," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "you didn't fail him. My dad helped you because he believed in kindness and compassion. He wouldn't want you to feel this way. Just knowing that you remember him and are grateful is enough." Gary nodded, trying to compose himself. "Your dad's legacy lives on in you," he said, attempting a smile. "He would be proud." The ceremony began, and I found a quiet corner to observe from. Rachel and Scott exchanged their vows, but I couldn't shake the feeling of disconnection from the event. My mind was flooded with memories of my dad, his dedication, and the values he instilled in me. As the ceremony concluded, guests mingled and congratulated the newlyweds. Gary approached me once more. "James, if there's anything I can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to ask. Your father saved my son, and I owe him everything." I smiled warmly. "Thank you, Mr. Gary. Just keep living with the same kindness my dad showed you. That's the best way to honor him." Rachel approached, her expression still cold. "Enjoying the show?" she asked sarcastically. I took a deep breath. "Rachel, I didn't come here to cause trouble. I came to pay my respects and to wish you well." She scoffed. "Well, mission accomplished. Now you can leave." I nodded, understanding her anger but feeling no need to respond further. As I turned to go, Scott stepped forward, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming, James. It means a lot." I shook his hand. "I wish you both the best. Take care of each other." Walking away from the venue, I felt a mix of emotions. The day had brought closure to some old wounds and opened my eyes to the enduring impact of my dad's kindness. It wasn't the outcome I expected, but it was a powerful reminder of the values that truly matter. I had an unexpected experience that changed my wounded heart into feelings of pride and happiness. Afterwards, Gary insisted on repaying the medical expenses and the kindness my dad had shown. He gave me a substantial amount of money that he had saved for my dad. Additionally, Gary's hospital started doing business with my company. This significantly boosted my performance at work, and I finally got promoted. The kindness and compassion my dad had shown came back to me in a wonderful way. I cherished this happiness while remembering the serious look in my dad's eyes when he was working. My dad's dedication to helping others had a lasting impact on me and on those he helped. His legacy was not only in the lives he saved but also in the values he instilled in me. As for Rachel, her second marriage didn't turn out as she had hoped. Her husband eventually found out that she had dated me before our divorce and that her motivations for both her previous and current marriages were driven by money. Over time, he grew tired of her behavior, and this led to another divorce. I heard about it through the grapevine. It was a reminder that what goes around comes around. Living by my dad's example, I believe that even if something doesn't benefit me directly, it can still bring happiness to someone else. This belief guides my actions every day. Today, I saw someone smile, and just knowing I contributed to that happiness reassures me that my life is heading in the right direction. Reflecting on these events, I realized how much my dad's principles had influenced my life. His approach to helping others without expecting anything in return had come full circle. The money Gary gave me was a tangible reminder of my dad's generosity, but even more valuable was the recognition and respect his actions had earned. At work, my newfound success wasn't just about the promotion. It was about knowing that my dad's legacy had indirectly contributed to my achievements. Gary's hospital partnering with my company was more than a business deal. It was a testament to the long-lasting effects of kindness and integrity. Rachel's situation served as a contrasting lesson. Her focus on material gain led to temporary happiness, but ultimately resulted in loneliness and loss. It was a stark reminder that true happiness and fulfillment come from genuine connections and helping others, not from selfish pursuits. Every day, I strive to live by the values my dad taught me. I take pride in helping others, knowing that even small acts of kindness can have a profound impact. Seeing the smiles of those I help is more rewarding than any material gain. It reassures me that I am on the right path, one that my dad would be proud of. My journey from a wounded heart to a place of pride and happiness has been shaped by the lessons my dad imparted. His life was a beacon of compassion and selflessness, and I aim to follow in his footsteps. The unexpected twists and turns have only reinforced my belief in the power of kindness. As I move forward, I carry with me the memories of my dad's dedication and the impact he had on others. His legacy lives on not just in me but in everyone who experienced his kindness. Each day is an opportunity to honor his memory by continuing to spread happiness and support to those around me. In conclusion, the experience with Gary and the changes in my life have shown me the importance of living with integrity and compassion. My dad's influence continues to guide me, and I am committed to making a positive difference in the world, one act of kindness at a time.
Larry, a young man, recently proposed to his girlfriend, Karen. I went with him to meet her parents, only to find out her father was the famous owner of a brand store. This made Larry nervous, knowing Karen came from a prominent family, but he managed to answer all of her father, Michael's, tough questions confidently. However, things took a turn when Michael found out I only finished middle school. He slapped Larry right there. I was furious at how he looked down on us just because we didn't have the same social status. I told him we'd meet again, and then Larry, Karen, and I left for the hospital. On the way, I told Karen I would confront Michael about his actions. Her response made me even more determined. The next day, when Michael realized who I really was, he was shocked. My name is Kevin, and I'm 65 years old. Ever since my wife passed away, I've been living with my son Larry. Since retiring, my legs have weakened, and I can't walk for long periods. I use a wheelchair at home and rely on Larry to help me move around. Despite being 30 in the prime of his life, Larry cares deeply for me. We hired a housekeeper to help, but Larry still takes the time to push my wheelchair, even on his days off. I'm always silently grateful to him. Then came the big moment. One night, after coming home from work, Larry shared the news that he had proposed to Karen. The news was so overwhelming, it almost made me drop my tea. Larry just told me he proposed to his girlfriend, Karen. I asked him what she said, and with a big smile, he made a circle with his hands and said, "She said okay, she'll marry me." I could see the happiness on his face, and it was so strong that I almost cried with joy as I congratulated him. But soon, Larry looked sad. "What's wrong? You got a yes, but you seem upset," I asked. "It's great that she said yes, but now I need her parents' approval, and I'm really nervous about it," Larry replied. I remembered feeling the same way when I met my late wife's parents. Her father was very strict, and it took many trees before he agreed to our marriage. Now, Larry was facing a similar challenge. To encourage him, I patted him on the shoulder and said, "I was really nervous when I asked for permission to marry, but if you're honest about your feelings, they will see your sincerity." I'm not just being a proud dad when I say that Larry is a wonderful young man. He's hardworking, helps around the house, and is well-liked because he's such a kind person. "It's a bit scary, but I'll give it my best shot," Larry decided. "That's the spirit. But straight to your successful proposal," I said. That night, we celebrated with our best sake. Karen chose a traditional restaurant for the marriage meeting, one that was wheelchair accessible, showing how thoughtful she is. Larry has excellent taste in women. Karen is truly a wonderful match. Feeling inspired, I decided to give Larry a gift to boost his courage for the upcoming proposal. While he was at work, I went with my helper to a high-end department store to find something appropriate for him. While Larry was at work, I saw a set of bowls being sold as a couple's item. But I reminded myself that Larry hadn't yet received approval from Karen's parents. So trying not to get ahead of myself, I went to a men's boutique instead. At the store, I mumbled to myself while trying to decide what to buy. Being in a wheelchair, I couldn't reach the shelves, so I asked a nearby salesperson for help. "Excuse me, could you help me see something on the top shelf?" However, the salesperson ignored me, probably because he saw my wheelchair. Thinking he hadn't heard me, I tried again. This time, the salesperson sneered and said, "We don't have anything suitable for someone like you here." I was shocked by his rudeness. Just as I was about to complain, a well-dressed man came from the back of the store, and the other staff bowed to him, showing he was someone important. He looked to be in his late 60s, stocky and stout. I approached him, hoping he would address the salesperson's behavior. "Excuse me, I was treated horribly by your staff," I began. Just then, the earlier salesperson called out, "Mr. Michael, the president," and hurried over. This man was not just the store manager, he was Michael, the president of a major menswear brand known throughout Japan. When I explained what happened, Michael asked, "Well, sir, was there an issue with the staff?" I told him again that the staff member had disrespected me when I asked for help. I expected Michael to apologize and correct the situation, but to my dismay, he just snorted and laughed. "Ha ha, sir, this is a high-end men's store. If you're dissatisfied, perhaps try somewhere else." I was shocked and openly showed my anger. "Can't you see our clientele are all affluent? We have nothing suitable for someone as plainly dressed as you." Michael smirked, laughing with the staff. Appalled by the treatment, I left the store in anger. Forget it, I don't need this place, I thought. I knew the brand was popular among celebrities, but this was a bitter experience. I ended up buying a different gift, but the incident at the store still upset me. I planned to give Larry the gift after a successful meeting with Karen's parents. Today, we were heading to the traditional restaurant where Karen's parents were waiting. As Larry pushed my wheelchair, I could see he was nervous. "Don't worry, Karen's parents are probably nice people," I reassured him several times as we got closer. Traditional Japanese restaurants usually have mats and cushions, but they had set up a room with chairs and a table for us. Karen and her parents were already there. But the moment I saw her father, I couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh, what's wrong, Dad?" Larry asked. "It's nothing," I replied. Karen's father turned out to be Mr. Michael, the president from the store. I hadn't realized Karen shared his last name, which is why I didn't connect the dots earlier. When Michael saw me, he nodded with a smile, which was very different from how he had treated me at the store. He seemed friendly and said, "Nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to today," inviting me to sit down. I realized he had forgotten about our previous meeting at the store. To him, I was just another customer he didn't remember. Trying to calm down, I reminded myself that today was about the marriage proposal. However, the idea of Michael becoming Larry's father-in-law wasn't pleasing to me. As the Japanese cuisine was served and we began to eat, I felt a bit awkward. Michael started a conversation. "So where did you meet my daughter, Karen?" "I met Karen through a coworker, and it was love at first sight for both of us," Larry replied. "They started dating after work and their relationship grew deeper." "You have a good eye to take a liking to my daughter," Michael chuckled. After dating Karen for a while, I learned that her father is the president of a famous apparel company. At a family meeting, I saw Larry and Mr. Michael getting along well, which was a relief. Karen, who was initially nervous, relaxed as she watched them chat. Then Mr. Michael started talking about his family history, dating back before the Showa era. He said it was his duty as the head of the Michael family to maintain their legacy. The atmosphere tensed up as he looked at Larry and said he needed to determine if Larry was suitable to be his daughter's husband. Mr. Michael was smiling, but his words made us feel inferior. I had noticed at the store that Mr. Michael was an arrogant man who seemed to think all the accomplishments of his ancestors were his own doing. As the conversation continued, Karen whispered to her father, asking him to be careful with his words. Suddenly, Mr. Michael slapped her across the face. Larry and I were too stunned to move. Mr. Michael declared that he would decide who Karen marries and warned her not to speak out. Karen looked sad with a bruised cheek. It was shocking. "Mr. Michael, sir, that was too much," Larry said, standing up for her. Mr. Michael glared at him and scoffed. "Oh, a young man dares to speak against me." Larry, looking straight at Mr. Michael, declared his intention to marry Karen, showing his determination no matter the opposition. Inspired by his courage, I also stood up to Mr. Michael, praising Larry's diligence at work and the high regard his superiors have for him. I said Larry, still in his 30s, has a promising future. "Desperate to join our ranks, aren't you?" Mr. Michael scoffed, dismissing us with a snide remark, but I kept my cool. I told Mr. Michael that all I wanted was for my son and Karen to be happy and asked him to bless their marriage. Then I bowed my head deeply. Larry did the same. However, Mr. Michael clicked his tongue blably and said, "Didn't you hear? I decide if you are suitable to be my son-in-law." "Dad, don't raise your voice, it's disturbing the other guests," Karen interjected. "Be quiet. Your marriage is my decision," Mr. Michael snapped back. Despite Karen's effort to calm him, Mr. Michael glared at us and criticized, "Why are only two of you here? It's only polite for both parents to come to a marriage meeting." It seemed Larry had already explained our family situation to Karen, but Mr. Michael had either forgotten or ignored it. My wife passed away when Larry was in high school. Since then, it's been just the two of us, I explained. We face the grief of losing family members and are here now. My role, having outlived my wife, is to ensure Larry's happiness. We're our father's son household. Such broken people shouldn't dare approach our family. Mr. Michael sneered. Larry and I were shocked by his insult. Karen and her mother looked at him in disbelief. Please take back what you just said. I might overlook it if it was just about me, but I can't ignore an insult towards my father and late mother, Larry said, visibly angry and his face turning red. An insult? I'm merely stating facts, Mr. Michael scoffed, taunting him further. Then, ignoring our feelings, he bombarded us with questions. If the current project I'm negotiating succeeds, there might be a chance for a promotion to manager, Larry replied, hopeful. And you think that's enough to marry into our family? Mr. Michael laughed mockingly at every answer Larry gave, as if to belittle him. The atmosphere was as tense as a stressful interview, weighing heavily on us all. Karen and her mother, perhaps frightened by Mr. Michael, remained silent and looked down the entire time. I only like highly educated elites. Surely, Larry, you graduated from a decent university, right? Mr. Michael continued, sizing up Larry. I was getting angry at how he was judging us, but I knew any reaction could jeopardize Larry's chance of marrying Karen. Larry, who studied economics at a national university and had studied abroad, responded confidently to Mr. Michael's harsh questions. Karen seemed relieved by his composure, and I felt proud of my son. However, perhaps not liking Larry's confident attitude, Mr. Michael frowned and turned to me with a question. And where did you go to university? He asked. I had a bad feeling, but couldn't lie. Due to financial reasons, I only graduated from middle school and never went to college, I replied. At my answer, Mr. Michael's eyebrow twitched, and he fell silent. During the tense silence, Larry spoke up. Educational backgrounds still matter between Karen and me. We're serious about wanting to marry, he said. But as he continued, Mr. Michael suddenly stroked Larry's face. Larry was sent flying through the sliding doors onto the outside corridor. A passing server screamed in shock. I moved my wheelchair to see Larry with his nose swollen and red. Karen rushed over and pressed a handkerchief to his nose. At this point, I had lost all patience with Mr. Michael. What are you doing to my son? I'd yelled at him. Mr. Michael looked down on us with disdain. A single father with only a middle school education. I wouldn't want my daughter marrying into that. Get out, he said. It was clear he had struck Larry because of his disdain for our family background and educational level. Filled with the urge to retaliate but prioritizing Larry's care, I knew we needed to get into a hospital due to a possible fracture. I gave Mr. Michael a stern look and asked a server to call a taxi. While waiting, I asked Mr. Michael two last questions. Do you recognize my face by any chance, Mr. Michael? What? I wouldn't know someone as poor-looking as you. Michael glanced at me and scoffed dismissively. Is that so? That's too bad, I said, containing my frustration at his sneer. I didn't say anything as the taxi arrived, and with the server's help, we got in. Karen tearfully offered to come with us, so the three of us went to the hospital. On the way, Karen spoke softly. My father has always been like this, always saying we are a noble family. It seems Mr. Michael became arrogant because he grew up in a privileged environment. Having too much wealth can corrupt people, but Karen is kind-hearted, not like you would expect from someone raised in such a way. She was still concerned for Larry, thinking about how happy they could be if they got married. But the big problem was her father. I told Karen, we might have to face your father and it could affect you, your mother, at home. She looked at me, wide-eyed. Then with determination, she said, no matter what, I want to marry Larry. I will tell my mother myself. Knowing her feelings, I took out my phone and made a call. Hello, it's me. Sorry for the rush, but gather everyone for an emergency. Soon after, we arrived at the hospital. Luckily, Larry didn't have any fractures and just needed some treatment. We got a medical report from the doctor, now ready to deal with Mr. Michael, necessary. The next day, I went to a rented conference room downtown. Larry was with his assistant due to work. When I entered, many people were already there, including some older gentlemen and a woman in her 50s wearing glasses. Mr. Michael was also there. Seeing me, he looked shocked. Why are you here? He exclaimed loudly. As soon as he raised his voice, the others in the room glared at him. Noticing the odd atmosphere, Mr. Michael looked around nervously. "What's going on with everyone?" he asked. "It's obvious, Mr. Michael," you shouted. 3 remarked. "What's more important? Why is a middle school grad in this sacred place?" Initially shocked, Mr. Michael now looked at me with disdain. "I gathered everyone here urgently," I responded. "You are not an outsider," Mr. Michael shouted in anger, but that just fueled his emotions further. I smiled a bit mischievously. "Is it appropriate to speak to me like that, considering I'm a majority shareholder?" Mr. Michael's face turned to disbelief, and I couldn't help but laugh. "My goodness, not knowing your own company's shareholders? What a noble family," I taunted. "It's true. I own more than half of the company's shares and attend shareholder meetings. Though being in a wheelchair might make me less noticeable, I had called the shareholders yesterday to organize an emergency shareholder meeting." "Thank you for coming on such short notice," I said, bowing to the shareholders who returned the gesture with smiles. Then, looking back at Mr. Michael, who stared at me wide-eyed, he flinched under my gaze. "Thank you for yesterday. I wanted to express my gratitude by holding this emergency shareholder meeting here." "Emergency shareholder meeting." Mr. Michael trembled nervously. "As the principal shareholder, I've worked as an investor. Even from my wheelchair, I analyze market trends and mentor juniors on investment strategies. The profits from my investments have exceeded hundreds of millions of dollars, allowing me to provide financial aid to numerous companies. As a shareholder, I can influence the company's management policies and participate in the appointment and dismissal of executives." "I would like to discuss a proposal for the dismissal of President Michael," I said. "What? Fire me? That's ridiculous," Mr. Michael exclaimed and tried to leave the room. However, other shareholders blocked the door. Last night, when I told the shareholders about the emergency general meeting, they agreed with me and proposed a vote of no confidence against Mr. Michael, considering he struck the son of the principal shareholder. "Appropriate sanctions are necessary," I stated, glaring at him. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Mr. Michael began to sweat and panic. Yet he chuckled smugly, then burst out laughing. "Ha ha, you think you can intimidate me? I won't let my family's legacy crumble in my generation." Mr. Michael looked around at the shareholders. "If you fire me, this company is finished. Our brand stands out because of its 110-year history. I plan to merge it with another company I support." I retorted, "I am also a major shareholder in another company and considered merging it with Mr. Michael's. I was prepared to use any means necessary to oust this contemptible man from his presidency. It's called an absorption merger. Your company will be absorbed by another." I told Mr. Michael, "I won't allow it," as he stood defiantly against the idea of an absorption merger, knowing it would mean he could no longer be president. He became hostile towards me, saying, "I won't let someone who knows nothing about running this family business take it from me." "I can't let what was done to my son go unaddressed," I countered. We glared at each other, the tension in the room thick. Then, with a cunning smile, Mr. Michael pointed at me and said, "You say he was harmed, but do you have any proof? It's rude to accuse someone without proof. You won't be easily forgiven, even if you apologize on your knees." He then loudly asked the other shareholders, "Have any of you seen proof from Mr. Kevin?" They looked at each other and shook their heads. I had only informed them verbally of the situation. Nobody had any proof. Then Mr. Kevin's claims must be false, Mr. Michael concluded, as the room began to murmur and suspicious glances were cast my way. Confident he had turned the situation around, he gloated, "You almost deceived everyone with your lies. I should sue you for defamation and get a hefty compensation." As he approached me, still silent, he taunted, "Why don't you say something? Or perhaps you do have proof?" "Yes," I replied. "I prepared something special." I had set up a projector in front of the screen and connected it to my cell phone. I've obtained special cooperation for the agenda. "I will now play a video," I announced to Mr. Michael and the others. I then played the video stored on my phone. Displayed on the screen was a scene of the Michael family and my family having a meal together. The footage was shot from an overhead perspective, clearly from a security camera. When Mr. Michael realized he was on camera, he started to panic. "What is this video? When did you get this?" He tried to approach me, but the shareholders held him back. I had anticipated this and secured the evidence in advance. In fact, after sending Larry to the hospital yesterday, I went back to the restaurant. I explained to the restaurant owner and the waitress what had happened and managed to get the security footage from them. "Did you bribe the restaurant? What a low move," Mr. Michael exclaimed. "I'm not so naive as to stay silent after my son was attacked," I retorted. The video continued to play, showing the moment Larry was answering Mr. Michael's questions before being struck by him. The shareholders gasped in shock. In the video, Mr. Michael was seen yelling, "A single father with only a middle school education. I wouldn't want my daughter marrying into that. Get out." Then the footage showed us leaving for the hospital by taxi. However, the video didn't end there. While Karen, Larry, and I were on our way to the hospital, Mr. Michael and his group were still at the restaurant. His expression tensed up as he watched. "Stop this video now," he yelled at me, but I ignored him and turned up the volume. In the video, Mr. Michael was reproached by his wife and then slapped her. "Silence. As my wife, you obey without question. I won't tolerate back talk from you, the company staff, or those pompous shareholders. You're all just pawns to me," he declared. The video ended with his wife sobbing, and the screen went blank. Silence fell over the room, and nobody spoke. Mr. Michael stood pale-faced in front of the screen. That was the evidence video of President Michael hitting my son. "Oh, and the last part was just a bonus," I said with a smirk. "Now, you can't deny it happened," I continued. Mr. Michael, trembling, turned to face the shareholders. "Ah," he squeaked, stepping back in a pathetic manner. The shareholders glared at him fiercely, ready to act. With the proof presented and his disdain for the shareholders revealed, Mr. Michael found himself cornered by everyone present. "You insulted the people who fund you? You know what happens next, right?" Mr. Michael's face contorted as he began to unravel. "One can only imagine what happens to a company once its shareholders turn their backs," I added with a smirk. Even the vast wealth of the Michael family would be severely hit if the shareholders collectively abandoned them. Moreover, if the incident with Larry and Mr. Michael's harshness were exposed externally, it would damage the company's image. Client transactions might also be withdrawn. "Okay, I understand," I concluded. "I'll increase the dividends for everyone, so please forgive me," Mr. Michael pleaded, putting his hands together in front of the shareholders. But they were furious. "We can't forgive someone who's insulted us behind our backs. Please, I'm terribly sorry, forgive me," he kept apologizing, surrounded by the majority of people now forcing him into a humble posture. Usually bold, he quickly cowered when his position weakened. Seeing this, I realized that this was the real Mr. Michael. Raised in privilege and pampered from birth, he had lost any sense of gratitude. He used his ancestors' prestige to look down on others, living luxuriously and complacently. Mr. Michael had struck Larry without knowing I was the principal shareholder. This was the result of his choices. Unable to gain forgiveness from the shareholders, he half cried, clinging to me. "Mr. Kevin, I am so sorry, please forgive me. Do you regret hitting my son?" He nodded vigorously and knelt before me. "Absolutely. I will also pay damages to your son, so please continue to support us financially." "I refuse. My goal is to remove you from the presidency," I responded. "We met before the marriage meeting, remember? At that restaurant we visited, he finally recalled our meeting as his face turned pale with trembling. "A company that can't train its staff properly isn't worth supporting," I gave him a cold look. Out of desperation, Mr. Michael blurted out an incredible offer. "Then I will give you my daughter, Karen. I have raised her strictly. She is a fine woman. Please do as you wish with her." Despite it being his own daughter, he treated her like an object, which enraged me. "Don't mess with me. Children are not offerings." Anger nearly caused me to fall from my wheelchair. "I apologize, but Karen wishes to marry Larry, and her will is also my will," I said. "Oh, so you won't oppose Miss Karen's wishes?" he asked. "Of course not." I smiled slightly, and he misunderstood my forgiveness, slumping down relieved. "Let's hear it from the person herself then," I called out towards the door. "Come on in." As the door opened, Larry, Karen, and Mr. Michael's wife entered. Seeing the three, Mr. Michael's mouth fell open in astonishment. "Why are you all here?" "We came together," they replied. I had asked the three of them to wait by the door until I gave them a signal. I called them in to confront Mr. Michael about their intentions directly. Seeing Larry with scars on his nose and me, Mr. Michael quickly bowed his head to Larry. "Larry, I deeply apologize for raising my hand against you. I am very sorry." Larry didn't respond and turned to face Karen. "My desire to marry Karen remains unchanged, but first, please hear what she has to say." Karen looked straight at her father and said, "I have lived obeying your orders, grateful for how you raised me, but now I choose to be with Larry." Karen and her mother stood side by side, glaring at Mr. Michael. "My mother and I are leaving the house and will cut ties with you," Karen declared. In the taxi, I had learned about her decision to separate from Mr. Michael. That's why I brought them here to tell them directly. Why? How? You're my wife, aren't you? He said, grabbing his wife's shoulder and shaking her. However, she presented him with signed divorce papers. I will not let a cruel husband dictate my daughter's life. Larry and Karen, they declared to Mr. Michael, we will get married after cutting ties with you, and my mother and I are leaving home. Thank you for everything up to now. She bowed her head, signifying their estrangement. Rejected by his family, Mr. Michael became desperate. No, don't abandon me. I've been awful, raising my hand and speaking harshly. I regret it. Don't leave me. But they looked down on him, expressionless. Seizing the moment of his isolation, I'd addressed the shareholders. Let's get back to the main issue. Those in favor of dismissing President Michael, please applaud. A few scattered claps gradually grew louder. When everyone except Mr. Michael clapped, his fate was sealed. This marks the end of your glorious life. Curse your own foolishness, someone said. Mr. Michael collapsed to the floor, weeping loudly. With that, the emergency shareholder meeting concluded. The company was then absorbed through a merger, and Mr. Michael was stripped of his executive position. Now shunned by former business associates who were aware of his brutal behavior, he found himself completely alone. Furthermore, a skilled lawyer hired by his wife exposed years of domestic harassment, resulting in a multi-million-dollar settlement. The once prestigious Michael family fell apart with his generation. Mr. Michael tried to start new businesses using the remains of his fortune, but he soon faced financial difficulties and went bankrupt multiple times, increasing his debts until nothing was left. His mansion was taken to repay debts, and all his valuable possessions were confiscated. Without work, family, or home, Mr. Michael wandered until he became homeless. One can only imagine what his ancestors, who had built such wealth, would think of him now, possibly standing by his bedside at night, whispering words of resentment. After the merger, Karen and her mother lived modestly, their spirits lifted, free from Mr. Michael's oppressive presence. Larry happily married Karen. They built a new home and invited me to live with them. Initially, I refused, not wanting to intrude on the newlyweds, but they insisted, and I was spared from loneliness. And one thing I almost forgot, I finally gave Larry the wedding gift I had been carefully saving for him.
No way, that's impossible. We're living together. You just need to sign the divorce papers. Good luck with your poor life. I stood there, dazed, holding the phone after the call was suddenly cut off. The lawyer couldn't help but burst out laughing. Olivia looked at the lawyer, confused. He was wiping tears with a handkerchief. My name is Karen, and I am the CEO. I have been married to my husband, James, for 3 years. We don't have children. We're both so busy with work, often even on weekends, that we hardly find time for long talks. We mostly see each other in passing, so we try to sync our schedules for overseas trips during our long breaks. It's only once a year, but it's something we both really look forward to. When we got married, we decided to buy a condo on the upper floor of a Bay Area tower. It was a stretch financially, but we thought about the future value of the property. Thanks to that, we're happy with our current life. I have a close friend from high school, Olivia. We sometimes grab lunch together. Olivia is beautiful and has high standards for men. She's not married yet but is eager to be. She looks for well-educated, high-earning men on dating apps and won't compromise on their income. One day, I was having lunch with Olivia at a cafe near a park. We went to high school and university together, even shared the same classes. That's why we've consulted each other about various things over the years, knowing quite a bit about each other's dating histories and types. During our student days, we shared both fun and sad times. Those are cherished memories now. Since marrying James 3 years ago, we've both gotten busier, and the chances to meet have decreased. Now, we only see each other a few times a year. I'll come visit your condo next time, Olivia suddenly said. She'd never been to my place before. Then, on the weekend, she came over. I could tell she was amazed, even through the intercom at the entrance. As soon as I opened the door, Olivia looked impressed. Wow, this place is like a mansion, and that elevator ride was so long. I had chosen a spacious upper-floor condo because it was a once-in-a-lifetime purchase. It's even more spacious than a house. It's beautiful, really incredible. Olivia said as she looked around the condo, turning her head in every direction. Great location and an upper floor in a high-rise like this must have cost a fortune, Olivia remarked with a sly smile. Yeah, you could say it's $1 million condominium. It's got great security too, I said, but Olivia cut me off, reacting only to the term $1 million condominium. It must be over $1 million. Your husband must be making a lot, she said, her eyes wide with astonishment. That was so typical of Olivia. She always had high standards for men, especially regarding their income. James's salary is quite good for his age, I guess, I said vaguely. I felt it was tacky to be too explicit. Olivia had a look that seemed to hint at some ulterior motive. Can I use your bathroom? She asked and left the living room. I directed her to the bathroom and then started preparing tea in the kitchen. I was concerned when Olivia took a while to come back. I was about to check on her when she returned, saying, just replying to an email. Olivia usually didn't make excuses like that, so I felt a slight sense of unease. While enjoying the cookies Olivia brought as a gift and having tea, she asked, can I stay till the evening? She apparently wanted to greet James. It had been since our wedding that Olivia last saw James, so it wasn't unnatural for her to want to see him. I decided to check with James just in case. James was happy about it. I might finish work early, he replied in an email. I told Olivia it was okay, and then I started preparing dinner. Olivia was using her smartphone, but then she stood up and went to the bathroom again. I didn't notice while cooking, but Olivia was gone for quite a while. When she came back, she was wearing a familiar necklace. It was my necklace. As I stared at the necklace, Olivia gave an embarrassed smile. How do I look? Does it suit me? She posed like a model. Seeing my stunned expression, Olivia started laughing. Oh, come on, I'm just kidding. I found it and thought it was cute. It must have been super expensive, right? A premium piece for sure, Olivia said, sounding like a child making an excuse for a mistake. That's a gift for James. Wow, he must be really wealthy to afford something like this. Olivia sighed, but more importantly, that necklace was stored in the closet in the bedroom. It seemed like Olivia had pretended to go to the bathroom and instead went to the bedroom to peek into the closet. I couldn't believe her actions. However, I didn't want to seem petty, so I just emphasized that it was a precious item. Taking advantage of my mild reaction, Olivia made a surprising request. Can I borrow this necklace for a while? I've got a date with a doctor I met on a dating app. I want to wear it for that. Please, she pleaded, putting her hands together as if praying. Reluctantly, I decided to lend it to her. All right, but take good care of it. Like I said earlier, it's a gift for James. As soon as Olivia knew she could borrow it, she smiled and started touching the necklace gently. Of course, I understand, she said, though she seemed to ignore my words. When I finished preparing the meal, I pretended to go to the bathroom to check the bedroom. Sure enough, the closet in the bedroom and the chest beside the bed weren't fully closed. Olivia must have opened every drawer and door she could find. There were fingerprints on the jewelry, watches, and precious metals. She might have touched things but probably didn't intend to borrow them. The shoes seemed to have been tried on, and the heels were bent out of shape. This was clearly going too far. I went back to the living room and asked Olivia, you touched various things in the bedroom, didn't you? The shoes are out of shape, and there are fingerprints on the watch. Olivia puffed out her cheeks a bit instead of looking sorry. Please don't do that again, I told her. Olivia went back to her normal face and said, sorry. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it and risk hurting our friendship, so I just laughed it off lightly. That's when James came home. He was holding a box of cake. It was the first time James and Olivia had seen each other since our wedding. It was awkward at first, but they slowly started talking, and by dinner, they were chatting like old friends. While I was cleaning the dishes, they were laughing together. My boss is terrible, right? James said, laughing. I envy James's team, Olivia added. James was smiling, his eyes crinkling with laughter. "That's not true," he replied. I was a bit uncomfortable seeing Olivia touch James so casually, but I thought it was better than them being distant. After all, James wasn't usually the type of man Olivia went out with. About a month after Olivia's visit, I noticed a change in James. He spent more time on his smartphone, which he usually didn't do. He often seemed distracted when I spoke to him and asked me to repeat myself. He always took his phone with him, even to the bathroom. It was a noticeable change. I felt like I was becoming a cheated-on wife. I thought about checking James's phone once, but I hesitated to even touch it. Our conversations at home became increasingly rare. James started working on weekends much more often. He was hardly ever at home on weekends. Originally, we barely saw each other on weekdays, but now we weren't seeing each other on weekends either. It felt like we were living separately, even though we were in the same house. Moreover, we started sleeping in separate bedrooms under the excuse of his tiredness. I was thinking about divorce or separation when I found divorce papers on the living room table. Upon closer inspection, James had already signed them. Although I had suspected it, actually seeing them still shocked me. With trembling hands, I called James. "I just got home and saw this on the table. What does this mean?" "It means exactly what it looks like. I want a divorce," James replied. I pressed him for a real reason. "I've fallen in love with someone else. It's not just an affair. I'm serious about it." It was clearly cheating. Then I heard a familiar female voice on the phone. It was Olivia. "I'm dating James now. I even want to marry him," she said. Though I had suspected it, hearing it confirmed made my heart race and I broke out in a cold sweat. "I fell for James the moment I saw him at your house. We exchanged contact details and started messaging. One thing led to another and here we are," Olivia explained. Her tone was harsh. Maybe this was her true nature. "James says there's nothing left to discuss. Can you just sign the divorce papers and send them off?" Olivia asked. I wanted to talk things over, so I asked her to tell James to come home. "No way, we're living together now. You just need to sign the divorce papers. Good luck with your poor life," she replied, and then the call ended abruptly. I stood there, unable to move for a while. After that, sleepless nights continued for me. James didn't come home. I couldn't bring myself to touch the divorce papers. They just sat there untouched. Furthermore, Olivia kept sending me multiple photos of her and James together, flaunting her relationship. It seemed to be an intimate relationship, but this felt like harassment. My mental health deteriorated, my complexion worsened, and sometimes I'd become vacant even during the day. People around me became worried and strongly suggested I go to the hospital. I ended up being somewhat forcibly taken for treatment and started taking medication. I managed to find some peace and started to sleep again. I could somehow go to work, but then an unbelievable thing happened. When I returned from the hospital, something felt off in the room. Going to the bedroom and opening the closet, I found that bags and jewelry were missing. The count of jewelry and watches in the chest was off too. There was only one person who could have done this. Why would she do something like this? What had I ever done to her? My insomnia came back, and I had more sleepless nights, barely getting through my days. During counseling at the hospital, when I mentioned the theft at home, I was strongly advised to consult a lawyer. I contacted the company's lawyer right away and set up an appointment. The lawyer asked me first, "What would you like to do?" "I'll get a divorce. I want those two to face proper consequences," I answered immediately, surprising even myself. Just a little while ago, I was unsure what to do. I couldn't believe how easily those words came out of my mouth. Perhaps I really wanted to punish them after being tormented so unfairly. A week later, I received a message from Olivia. I had sent her a certified letter. "Hey, what are you thinking? Sending a certified letter to my workplace?" Olivia sounded pretty angry, her voice filled with rage. "You must have expected at least this much. Anyway, I'm leaving everything to my lawyer now." I hung up the phone. Olivia called several times after that, but I ignored all of them. Then James called. I had sent a certified letter to his parents' house. Apparently, his affair being exposed at home caused a huge uproar. I wanted to burst out laughing at his self-inflicted predicament, but managed to restrain myself. Feeling that leaving it all to the lawyer wouldn't be enough to calm my feelings, I decided to confront them both. I would denounce them thoroughly on the spot. The lawyer arranged the date and time, and we decided to have the discussion at the law office. A few days later, the two reluctantly showed up at the law office. I thought they would bring their own lawyer, but it seemed they came alone. Olivia stormed into the office, flinging the door open. James followed, looking uncomfortable. "Finally, we meet, you coward," Olivia said, not hiding her anger at all. James tried to calm her down. "You've been avoiding us all this time. Our wedding has been delayed because of you," Olivia said, looking like she might throw her bag at me any moment. James was desperately trying to hold her back. As I watched them with a feeling of pity, the lawyer nodded at me. "Please calm down. If any violence or abusive language occurs, we will immediately call the police," the lawyer said. The mention of the police made Olivia stiffen. With the lawyer's intervention, Olivia and James took their seats, becoming calmer. We sat across from each other at the office table, ready to start the discussion. "James, you're seeking a divorce, correct?" I asked. Olivia sat angrily while James slumped, looking defeated. "We agree to the divorce. However, since your relationship is considered adultery, we will ask for alimony," I stated. James's face clouded over. "I'll agree to the divorce, but once the alimony is paid, don't contact us ever," he said. I quietly nodded in agreement. Olivia looked displeased, maybe expecting more resistance from me. When the lawyer began discussing the alimony amount, Olivia snapped, "I said any amount is fine. We have plenty of money." Olivia sat arrogantly with her arms crossed. The lawyer looked at her with interest, then said, "Oh yes, didn't he tell you? James is the president of a jewelry company with a yearly revenue of $3 billion. James looked up frantically, trying to restrain Olivia's arm. "Alimony for an affair is nothing to us. I'll even give a proper share of the property," Olivia continued excitedly, her face flushed. James tried hard to calm her down. Olivia shook off his hand and continued, "You can barely make ends meet on your salary, right?" She scoffed with a laugh. The lawyer burst into uncontrollable laughter. Olivia looked at him with a puzzled expression. The lawyer, wiping tears with a handkerchief, said, "Actually, the president is Karen." Olivia was dumbstruck, her mouth hanging open. James hung his head, his body trembling slightly. "James is just an ordinary employee with no position at Karen's company." "I am Karen's corporate lawyer," I stated. Olivia started laughing loudly. "What are you talking about? Are you really a lawyer? Can lawyers lie?" she asked. The lawyer calmly replied, "Why not ask James next to you if what I said is a lie?" James, meanwhile, just bit his lip, looking down. Olivia, growing anxious, grabbed James's arms and began shaking him. "You said you were the president of a $3 billion jewelry company. That's not a lie, right?" James remained silent. He covered his face with his hands, uttering inaudible moans. Olivia, growing more desperate, gripped his arms tighter, repeatedly asking, "Answer me, it's not a lie, right?" James finally whispered in a raspy voice, "I'm sorry." The room fell into a deep silence. Olivia's strength seemed to leave her body, and she let her hands that were gripping James fall limply. "You said you were the president of a company making $3 billion a year," she muttered almost to herself. James's single apology had plunged Olivia into despair. She stood up, trembling. "It's a lie, right? There's no way you're the president." Olivia pointed at me accusingly. "Why didn't I know about this after all we've shared?" I spoke to Olivia calmly, as if guiding her. "Just because we're close friends doesn't mean I tell you everything, especially since you were so fixated on money. I had no intention of telling you." I looked Olivia straight in the eyes without averting my gaze. Olivia seemed to lose all her energy and slumped down. Then that house, of course, the house is in my name, so James will be the one leaving, I continued. Olivia fell silent, and James continued to hold his head. James probably didn't want to come here. He knew this would happen. But if he didn't come here, things would be worse. It's hell either way for him now. James is left with nothing but hell waiting for him. The lawyer began to present the evidence. I had first gathered these photos of James and Olivia together. They were the photos she sent to my phone, now printed out. The lawyer placed a voice recorder on the table and played a recorded conversation. Why would you send something like this? I just wanted to share our happiness with you. Olivia's voice filled the room, while James seemed to be holding back tears. Hey, still clinging to the past. I want to divorce quickly. I know what you're clinging to. It's James's income. He's the president of a $3 billion jewelry company, right? You hid it because you thought I might take it, Olivia said, perhaps embarrassed, and covered her face with her hands. Hurry up and divorce and leave that condo. It'll be mine soon. Too bad James didn't come back to you. I'll give you as much alimony as you want. Poor thing, your aim was the money, not James. I'm speechless at how you've been deceived, James. James looked down, tears spilling onto his pants. James and Olivia fell silent. Do you think this is over? What else is there, Olivia? You broke into the house when Karen wasn't there and stole several items, didn't you? The lawyer said calmly. James looked shocked, apparently unaware of this. Hey, what's this about stealing? Olivia bit her lower lip, her hands shaking. No, not me. I don't know anything, she said. The lawyer placed a tablet on the table and played a video. It showed Olivia sneaking into the bedroom, taking bags and jewelry, and stuffing them into her bag. Olivia stared wide-eyed at the footage. What is this? Why are you recording me? Isn't this illegal surveillance? She asked. James covered his face with his hands. Inside our house, we've always had security cameras. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? Who would think you'd break in to steal? I started to get a headache from their ridiculous argument. And you used my key without permission. I wanted those things. It's your fault for not buying them for me, one argued. They kept arguing, ignoring us and the lawyer, and I could only watch in disbelief. Please save your arguments for later. Regarding this theft, we will be filing a police report, I said. Olivia seemed to panic at the mention of the police. The police? That's a bit much, isn't it? I just borrowed something from a friend, she protested. I never gave you permission to borrow anything, I replied calmly. Besides, you're not a friend, you were just a classmate. That's why I'm filing a police report. Olivia seemed to realize she was defeated, and her attitude turned gloomy. Don't say that. I'll pay for it. I'll make up for it. Just please don't call the police. Olivia started to kneel and apologize. I looked down at her and said coldly, You're going to compensate. The value of what you stole is more than your annual income. Are you sure about that? Olivia was speechless. And there's also the matter of the alimony. Olivia turned to James, pleading in a tearful voice. You'll pay, right? Even if you're not the president, you still earn well, right? James was silent, looking down. He can't pay it because he's about to be fired, I added. James looked up in surprise. That's right, since leaving the house, James has not shown up for work. Plus, with this commotion, there have been complaints from his boss, I explained. James looked like he might collapse on the floor. But there's still the property division, right? I'll pay with that, Olivia said, but that wasn't possible. Karen and James had a prenuptial agreement about property. You didn't hear anything from James, did you? He never told you the inconvenient truths, I said, looking at James with disdain. The lawyer placed the contract on the table. The agreement stated that if the marriage lasted less than 5 years, neither party could claim the other's property. Currently, they were in the 3 years of their marriage. Olivia tried to grab the document, as if to tear it up. You should handle that document carefully. It's a notarized deed, and you could be held legally accountable for damaging it, I warned her. At the mention of a crime, Olivia stopped. She then half-heartedly pleaded with James, "James, you have savings, right? Use that to pay." James looked at Olivia with resentful eyes. "What money? You always wanted sushi, steak, this, that. There's no way I have any savings left." It appeared he also had debts from questionable sources. Olivia's shoulders slumped. It was a pitiable sight. The glamorous appearance that used to make men turn their heads was gone. This was the result of the seeds she had sown herself. The two sat looking haggard and lost, muttering, "This wasn't supposed to happen, and what will I do now?" I decided to leave the rest to the lawyer and stood up to leave. "Olivia, money isn't something you steal from others. It's something you earn through effort." After that, the divorce went through smoothly. I sent all of James's belongings back to his parents. His parents kept apologizing to me and even sent a letter of apology. Olivia was interrogated by the police for illegal entry and theft. My police report led to an investigation, and Olivia was arrested after admitting her guilt. Half of the stolen items had been sold, but I got the rest back. Despite the maliciousness of her actions, her show of remorse and intent to compensate suggested she might receive a suspended sentence. However, Olivia had other crimes. It was revealed that she had been stealing from men she met on a dating app, which meant she would likely face a prison sentence. No wonder she reacted so strongly to the mention of police and crime. James couldn't live in Olivia's apartment and moved to a two-apartment on the outskirts of town. He's looking for a job, but his unexplained absences and poor attitude at his last job make it hard for him to get hired. For now, he's getting by with day labor. After the divorce, I threw myself into my work. Now, I'm expanding our company's jewelry line to Europe. The idea came after a trip to Europe that I took as a break from everything. During that trip, I had the chance to share a glass of wine with the owner of a jewelry store in Switzerland. We talked passionately about jewelry designs. The owner and I hit it off, and he agreed to showcase my company's jewelry in his store. The owner is a wonderful man who, perhaps because of his own history with divorce, understands my heart act. To be honest, I'm focusing on sales in Switzerland, partly to see him. It might be mixing business with pleasure, but I think I've earned this perk after all I've been through. That's how tough it has been for me. I receive regular updates on their situations from the lawyer after the divorce. My husband and I were in Canary Islands on a trip that our daughter gifted us. During this joyful journey, something unexpected happened. We ran into my ex-fiancé, who is a doctor, along with the friends who stole him from me. They looked down on us and started talking badly about us. But when my husband asked, "Do you know who I am?" everything changed for them, and their lives took a turn for the worse. I'm Jenna, 51 years old, living with my husband, Julian. Our daughter, Maud, has become independent and is busy with her work and love life. She visits us occasionally and shares different stories, which makes us happy because she seems to be leading a fulfilling life. Maud is not Julian's child. Her real father passed away from illness when Maud was just 5 years old. It was a deeply sad time for us, and it took a long time to recover. However, thanks to a certain person, we were able to enjoy life again, though that same person would later betray us. 20 years ago, my husband suddenly collapsed and was rushed to the hospital for emergency care. A few months later, he passed away. At first, I couldn't accept this reality and spent my days in deep sadness, barely able to take care of Maud. Working was out of the question. My mother, who came to help from my parents' home out of concern, suggested that I see a psychiatrist. Dr. Austin, the psychiatrist who treated me, was incredibly understanding and kind. He and his father ran the clinic together, treating many patients as a two-person team. It was always busy because of the number of people needing help, but despite everything, Dr. Austin showed concern for Maud, who had suddenly lost her dad, and suggested she attend sessions with me. I was so caught up in my own problems that I didn't realize Maud was also hurting. I blamed myself, thinking I was a failure as a mom and wondering if things would be better if I weren't around. It's easy to lose sight of everything when you suddenly lose a partner you've been with for years. Dr. Austin never dismissed my feelings. He gave me medication and also provided emotional support. He told me, "Please come in right away if anything happens. If it's hard to come to the clinic, please call this number." He handed me a business card with his phone number on it. At first, I thought it might be a bother to call him, but I also knew I might need it in desperate times. Once, when I was feeling so low that I considered leaving this world and leaving Maud behind, I called Dr. Austin for help. He listened to my tearful words without interrupting, offering advice and encouragement that greatly relieved me. Just as I was about to hang up, he said, "If it's okay with you, I can give you my ID so you can send me messages." We started exchanging messages, and thanks to that, I gradually began to feel better. The days when I didn't think about my late husband became more frequent, and I eventually recovered enough to return to work. I sent Dr. Austin a message of gratitude, thanking him for everything. Then, to my surprise, he replied, "Jenna, if it's all right with you, I'd like to be there for you in your personal life too." I was shocked. I never imagined Dr. Austin had feelings for me. He said, "I understand you're a widow and heartbroken, but to be honest, I fell in love with you at first sight. I really like you and would never leave you. Would you consider being in a relationship with me?" His sudden confession took me by surprise. I wasn't aware of his feelings and couldn't believe he would want to pursue a relationship with a patient. Dr. Austin is handsome and well off, so I couldn't understand why he would be interested in a single mother like me. I shared my honest thoughts with him, but he assured me, "You're the only one for me. I can't even think about other women." Hearing this, and considering how much he had supported Maud and me, I decided to start dating him. In hindsight, it was risky for a doctor to pursue a relationship with a patient, especially someone like me, living far from the world of luxury. But despite these concerns, we continued our relationship for about a year. "I want to support Jenna and Maud for life," Austin said when he proposed. After discussing it thoroughly with Maud, we happily got engaged. Austin was very affectionate toward Maud, and they even went to the park together on weekends. One day, at the park, I met Kate again. Her mom, Sydney, and Austin were chatting the whole time. Austin was also great at getting along with the other moms, which made me trust him completely. Even though we weren't married yet, he was already involved with the mom friends, and I thanked him for that. Austin just laughed and said, "That's normal. Once we're married, it's the natural thing to do." I thought Austin was truly wonderful. Then one day, in the middle of our happy life, Kate said something that caught me off guard. She told me that Austin was going to be her dad soon, just like he was going to be Maud's dad. I was stunned for a moment but brushed it off, thinking it was just a child's imagination. Austin was great with kids, and I figured Kate just liked him and was pretending. So I didn't think much of it. But that night, everything changed. Austin told me, "I'm sorry, but let's forget about the marriage." I was confused and immediately asked him why. He confessed, "Actually, I've fallen for someone else." Maud's words flashed through my mind, and I asked, "Don't tell me it's Sydney, Kate's mom." Austin froze, his face turning pale. Seeing his reaction, I realized he had planned to break up with me without mentioning Sydney. It shocked me that he would go after a married woman, especially the mother of Maud's friend. I felt betrayed and pleaded with Austin, trying to hold back my tears. But he cut me off, shouting, "Shut up." I was stunned by his sudden change. Luckily, Maud was staying at my parents' house at the time. Austin then added, "Sydney is more beautiful than you, and we're more physically compatible. Besides, you've been rejecting me lately because of Maud." I couldn't believe he chose Sydney for such shallow reasons. Whether Austin initiated it or Sydney did, it didn't matter, they both had crossed a line. As I tried to process everything, Austin made a cruel remark, saying he was drawn to the idea of being with a grieving widow. I liked the way you looked, even though your clothes and hair were a bit shabby. But it was your appearance as a widow that really attracted me. I wanted to control you. It was awful to realize that he never loved me for who I was. He continued, I kept treating you because I didn't want another doctor to take you away. It was a mistake that you recovered so well. Maybe it's thanks to my skills as a doctor. I should have made sure you kept coming to the hospital. I was shocked and couldn't understand what he was saying. As Austin continued his hurtful words, I quickly became disillusioned with him. I had had enough and said, let's break up, and you'll pay compensation for breaking off the engagement. Austin looked surprised for a moment, but seemed eager to be with Sydney. I'm a doctor, and money is no problem for me. Here, take it. With your poor appearance, you should go to a beauty salon. But since you'll be a single mother now, maybe not. And so, my relationship with the despicable Austin ended. I also demanded compensation from Sydney. She said, since you're a single mother, you'll need money. Fine, I'll donate this to you. In return, I'll take Austin without any hesitation. Bye, greedy poor person. I was never particularly close to Sydney, but I never imagined her character could be this bad. At this point, it seemed those two were a perfect match for each other. In fact, I even thought it was probably for the best that Sydney took Austin away. Later, I found out that Sydney got divorced, and within 3 months, both she and Austin had left town. However, since Austin's father's clinic was in the area, they likely hadn't moved far away. By the way, Kate, who was excited about Austin becoming her dad, ended up under the custody of Sydney's husband. Apparently, it was too difficult for Sydney's husband to raise Kate alone, so he also moved back to his parents' home. This news made Maud burst into tears. I didn't want Austin to leave, she cried. More than being upset about Sydney taking Austin away, I was heartbroken to see Maud cry. I had never wished for someone's misfortune before, but after everything that happened, I sincerely hoped those two would be unhappy. Now, at 51, I'm very happy. I thought I was done with men, but then I met someone by chance and remarried. He's nothing like the despicable Austin, a truly wonderful man who cares deeply for both Maud and me. His name is Julian, and he's 55 years old. Although he's usually busy with work, he frequently makes time for our family. Now that Maud is independent and it's just the two of us, we're living like newlyweds. Then one day, he handed me something and said, here, take this and go enjoy Canary Islands. I received tickets to Canary Islands from Maud, who had gotten a bonus at work. She even booked the hotel for us. Oh no, that's too much, I said, feeling overwhelmed. It was our first overseas trip. Aren't you coming with us, Maud? I asked. It's a token of my appreciation for all you've done, so go enjoy it together, she replied. We accepted Maud's kind offer and decided to go on the trip to Canary Islands. It was our first overseas trip as a couple, and it was incredibly fun. After a long day of sightseeing, we headed back to our hotel. Suddenly, I heard a voice. Huh, is that Jenna? I turned towards the voice and, to my surprise, saw Austin and Sydney, the ones who had betrayed me at the same hotel we were staying in. Who's that? Austin asked, pointing at Julian. He's my husband, I replied. Both of them started laughing. You remarried, but your new man looks, I don't know, kind of poor, they said, suddenly insulting Julian. It's true that Julian isn't fussy about his appearance and rarely wears brand-name clothes. Excuse me, but what brand is that outfit? Austin asked in a clearly condescending tone. When Julian mentioned the name of a clothing chain store, the two of them burst into laughter. What? You shop there? You're poorer than I thought. Unbelievable. Isn't that the store where only really broke people shop? They mocked a person they had just met, and I was so shocked that I couldn't speak. You seem to be struggling with money, yet you're on a trip to Canary Islands. Are you sure it's okay? Austin questioned. Julian responded calmly. Actually, it's a gift from our daughter. The two of them probably never expected me to speak up like that. I continued, "And what kind of nerve do you have, insulting someone you've just met, especially on a vacation? My husband, no less, calling him poor and whatnot. How old are you both? Is your mind all right? To anyone watching, you two seem like the crazy ones." At my words, I saw a hint of realization cross their faces. "No, we were just drunk," Sydney stammered. "And seeing you after so long, looking so happy, she trailed off, trying to excuse their behavior. "Such an excuse is unacceptable," I replied firmly. "So being drunk excuses anything. And what does it matter if I looked happy? It's sad that you can't be happy for someone else's happiness." Julian addressed them calmly but firmly. "We might never meet again, but don't ever say such terrible things again." With those parting words, we walked away, leaving them standing there, still trying to apologize. As we left, I could hear them saying, "I'm really sorry," over and over. Julian, still angry, decided to send the recording he had made to Austin's father. Not long after, Austin's dad called. After Julian explained the situation, it was clear that Austin's father was furious. Having met him a few times, I knew he was a strict man, and this news would not sit well with him. I could easily imagine Austin facing the wrath of his father. After their conversation, Austin's dad called us to apologize and said he would deal with Austin. Then he hung up. For Austin and Sydney, it must have been the worst Canary Islands trip ever. If they hadn't confronted us that day, we could have been enjoying ourselves at the hotel instead. A few days later, something unexpected happened. Austin's dad, along with Austin and Sydney, showed up at our house. Sydney was wearing light makeup, and both of them had noticeably red faces, clearly embarrassed. "We are truly sorry for what we did," they apologized sincerely. Acknowledging that they had wronged us, they offered a substantial amount of money as compensation. At first, we refused, but they insisted, so we accepted it. After that, the three of them left. Later, Austin's dad told Julian that Austin and Sydney had gotten divorced. It turned out that Austin's father had pressured them into it. He had never approved of their marriage from the start. Moreover, Austin was supposed to take over the family clinic, but that plan was now off, and he even faced a salary cut. As for Sydney, I didn't know what became of her afterward, but I recently heard a rumor that she was spotted working in a mature women's delivery service, looking quite haggard and struggling. Who could have imagined such an ending for someone who abandoned her child and stole her classmate's mom's fiancé? But I thought it was their responsibility to deal with the consequences of their actions. As for us, we felt upset after that incident, but after a good night's sleep, we felt refreshed and enjoyed the rest of our Canary Islands trip. When we told Maud about our experience, she laughed and said, "That's a good example of the kind of adult not to become." Indeed, I thought it was for the best that we had split up with Austin, especially for Maud's sake. Now, we're planning our next family vacation, eagerly looking forward to our happy trip together. On that important day, I stood in front of my father's grave. My father had been the CEO of a major company, and after his death, my brother-in-law Kyle took over. He inherited the company and a huge fortune. In contrast, all I got was an old mini truck. Kyle, flaunting his good fortune, mockingly said, "With this, I've got the company and the entire estate in my grasp. That mini truck suits you." But to me, that mini truck was more than just a vehicle. I looked at it fondly, and when I started the engine, I noticed a destination already set on the navigation system. "What's this?" I wondered. With a firm yet gentle grip, I began to drive. "My name is Jack Nicholson. I am a 44-year-old tutor. Now, I am standing before a large coffin where my father rests peacefully." My relationship with my father had always been very complicated. He built a construction company from scratch, but I chose a different path. I left home to become a teacher right after university, fulfilling a childhood dream. This decision led to many heated arguments, and for a long time, we barely spoke. But despite our disagreements, I never hated my father. I had my own dreams to follow, and I couldn't give them up to run the family business. Even though I felt a strong duty as the eldest son, guilt weighed on me for not meeting my father's expectations. This guilt kept me from visiting my parents' home. My mother relied on my sister, Lauren, to update my father about my life. Lauren and her husband would often send expensive gifts or arrange trips for my father's birthday or their anniversary, pretending they were from me. Each time, Lauren would encourage me, saying, "I wish you and Dad could talk directly. He's just trying to be strong." Deep down, he must be feeling lonely. I often thought about Lauren's words and would just shake my head. But one day, I got the sad news that my father had cancer. When I heard this, I quickly quit my job and went back to where my family lived. I realized that what really mattered was life itself, and the past arguments with my father seemed so small. I decided to move back to my hometown, teach at a local school, and take care of my sick father. At first, my father was shocked to see me return, but he eventually accepted it quietly. I didn't say much either. I just stayed by his side and took care of him, helping him whenever he needed it. He would thank me softly, and those words brought me some peace. Sadly, my father's fight with his illness ended. The last chapter of his life closed quietly with me, Lauren, and our mother by his side. We couldn't know what he was thinking in his last moments, but we hoped his soul was at peace. Even though we expected it, losing him deeply affected us all. My mother, Lauren, and even my young nephew, Peter, were all very sad and cried. The only one who didn't show any emotion was my brother-in-law, Kyle. During the funeral preparations, he coldly asked, "Did he finally die, huh?" Hearing that, I was proud of myself for staying calm and not reacting angrily to Kyle. Instead, I focused on planning my father's funeral. This kept me busy and helped distract me from the pain. I ignored Kyle's harsh words and made sure everything for the funeral was done right. Kyle and I had never gotten along well, and our relationship only got worse over time. But despite everything, I kept my focus during this tough time. I first met Kyle when he was a skilled worker at my father's company, and I really respected his skills. It felt like I had gained a real brother when Kyle married my sister, Lauren. He was 5 years older than me and seemed like a role model. Before they got married, I often asked him for advice on various problems, and he always listened with understanding. One of our big discussions was about whether I should join the family business. Kyle would say, "Sean should live his own life, and Jack, you have your own path. No one knows which choices in life are the best, so the most important thing is to make choices you won't regret later." Encouraged by his words, I switched from business school, where I was studying management, to the Faculty of Education, where I really wanted to study. As time went on, Kyle and Lauren got married and started their life together. 22 years have passed since then, and the distance between my father and me grew wider. I moved on with my life, missing the chance to close that gap. But when I heard about my father's illness, I dropped everything and rushed home. Kyle, who once greeted me warmly, had changed. He now seemed uncomfortable around me. When we were alone, Kyle would say coldly, "You came back in a hurry when you heard Sean was sick, didn't you? But no matter what, you won't inherit anything." His words caught me off guard, and I struggled to respond. "What do you mean? Don't act like you don't know. It might be a coincidence, but even if you now want to run the company, it's already decided that I will be the next leader?" His harsh words shocked me, and I replied louder than I intended, "No, that's not it. I didn't come back for the company." I realized I hadn't been a good son and wanted to apologize to Dad, even if it's late. Kyle dismissed me. "I don't need your fancy talk. It sounds like something from a TV drama. Lauren likes that kind of stuff. But were all those gifts you sent just a way to look good in front of Sean?" "That's absolutely not true." I tried to explain, but Kyle had already made up his mind and wasn't interested in believing me. His words also seemed like a slight against Lauren, and for the first time, I felt a deep divide between us. Ever since that incident, I started to feel really upset with Kyle. He began to mock me openly. No matter how much you try to win scene over, that time has passed. Don't make me laugh. Go back to where you belong and take care of your troubled students, he would say. At first, I thought deeply about how I appeared to others and how they saw me. But Kyle's words showed he was more concerned about himself than our father. His behavior often seemed disrespectful to both his father-in-law and his wife, Lauren. I started to believe that Kyle had married Lauren mainly to get closer to my father's company and wealth. He rarely visited my father when he was sick and didn't help take care of him. Now, all I could do was work as hard as possible to protect the company my father had built. Kyle always sounded polished, but he really just wanted to avoid problems. On weekends, he would go play golf, claiming it was for business. He hardly ever took care of his own son. He said he wanted his son to learn many skills to eventually take over the business, but he left all the driving and housework to Lauren. When Lauren showed a bit of unhappiness about this, Kyle would passionately take her hand and say, "I'm giving my all for scene's sake. Now is the time to produce results by any means necessary. Let's overcome this trial together." Lauren found it hard to stand up to him and usually just nodded, even though she seemed reluctant. Kyle was good at acting like the perfect husband in front of Lauren, so it's no surprise she believed him. He showed his true self to me, probably because he thought I was like him. I eventually got used to Kyle's mocking, and it didn't bother me as much. However, when our beloved father passed away, I was heartbroken. I felt a deep sadness and emptiness. Although Kyle seemed upset about our father's worsening health, I couldn't shake the feeling that he had been waiting for this moment. This thought made me very sad and angry. After our father died, Kyle inherited most of our father's large fortune. Even though he was just a son-in-law, he had the same rights to the inheritance as Lauren and me, according to my father's will. He got most of the shares of the company and a lot of wealth. This unexpected turn of events left me speechless, even though I was my father's biological child. I had thought the inheritance would be split fairly among the three of us, but instead, Kyle got almost everything. All I received was an old mini truck that my father once loved. In public, Kyle seemed surprised, but alone with me, he laughed and said, "You came all the way from the city to this small town, took care of Seed day and night, and all you got is this little truck, huh? What an ironic end. Now the company is mine, and you're left with just this mini truck as your inheritance. It's like a comedy." As he left the room with a smirk, I felt empty inside. Holding the mini truck keys tightly, the cold metal made me face the harsh reality. But my family tried to cheer me up. "Keep your head up. Scene had his reasons. He didn't mean to upset you. That truck was something Dad always loved. It was his favorite vehicle. He surely cared about you." Despite their kind words, I was too hurt to respond. I knew that what you inherit doesn't measure a father's love, but the fact that Kyle, who seemed to be waiting for my father to die, got almost everything, was deeply insulting. It wasn't about the money, it was the pain of seeing my father's hard work go to such a man. I felt powerless to change the situation. Clutching the truck key, I decided to take care of the mini truck, the only thing my father left me. It seemed to hold a deeper meaning. I hoped that cleaning the truck might help me sort out my feelings. I carefully washed the truck with a hose and then sat in the driver's seat, where my father used to sit. Starting the engine, I noticed something unusual on the navigation system. It was displaying a single thick blue route instead of just showing my location. That's odd. Why is there a destination set on the navigation system? I wondered. This usually only happens when a specific route is being followed. When I checked the destination on the screen, it showed only coordinates, not a specific place. It would take about an hour's drive. Wanting to go for a drive in the mini truck, I didn't think too much about it, put the truck in first gear, and left the house. An hour later, during a pleasant drive, I arrived at what seemed like a home. It was a surprise. In front of me was a small, modest house, quite different from the larger homes in my hometown. It felt warm and inviting. The area was quiet, and I couldn't see or hear anyone else around. I got out of the truck and stood in front of the house, feeling a bit confused. There were no signs to indicate what this place was, but it seemed the navigation system had brought me here for a reason. With some hesitation, I rang the doorbell. As the door slowly opened, the person I saw was the last one I expected, my mom. "I've been waiting, Jack. Come in, dear," she said. "Why are you here, Mom? And how come this place was set in Dad's navigation system?" I asked. "I will explain everything, but first, come inside and relax," she replied. Following her inside, I found the interior simple yet cozy, with just the essentials. My mom made some tea and started to explain in a calm voice. "Actually, this was your father's secret hideout." A hideout? I was surprised. I've never heard about Dad having a place like this. She explained, "This place is our secret spot. We came here when we needed our own space or when we wanted some peace and quiet. If we ever had a small argument, our rule was to come here to cool off. You didn't know about it, did you?" I was stunned and deep in thought. I had no idea such a family rule existed. She continued, "And this is something your father wanted you to have." Saying this, she handed me a brown envelope. It was slightly bulging, as if something important was packed inside. I decided to read the letter addressed to me. "Jack, I have caused you a lot of trouble and made you endure unbearable hardships over the years. I am truly sorry from the bottom of my heart." The letter was filled with my father's reflections on his past mistakes and his deep gratitude towards me. He wrote, "Your mother often tells me that it was your choice to leave home, and a son has the right to choose his own path in life. We are both stubborn, but when you came back after I fell ill, it was a wonderful surprise for me, although I couldn't express it well, because I'm not good at showing my feelings. I am deeply grateful to you for supporting and taking care of the family." This was the first time I heard such heartfelt words from my father, and it made me very emotional. The letter also mentioned Kyle. To tell the truth, my distrust towards Kyle grew over time. He's good with words and makes people feel comfortable, but I could see his true nature. I suspected his sneaky behavior around the house was his way of trying to claim ownership. I was too tired from work and taking care of you all to notice his cunning actions, but now, knowing Kyle as I do, I believe these suspicions were correct. The letter continued, "I have no intention of giving the company to you, but if something unexpected happens, I have left a significant amount of money with your mother. This is to ensure that you and Lauren will not be in need. Please accept it." After finishing the letter, I looked up at my mother. She said nothing but looked at the brown envelope. I hesitantly reached for it and checked its contents, confirming everything was in my mother's name. She began to speak firmly. "If I transfer the accounts to you and Lauren's names, it would be considered a gift under tax laws. If it's mentioned in the will, Kyle might try to take it. Your father gave this money to me secretly while he was still alive to avoid Kyle's interference. Now, I want to give it to you and Lauren as a living gift." She explained this to me, but I was still trying to understand the full impact. The amount written in the account book she showed me was huge, unlike anything I could have imagined. I had never seen so much money before. It meant a lot to me that my dad had left this for me, not because of the amount, but because it showed he really cared about me, not just Kyle, who was seen as his successor. This touched me deeply. We didn't often share deep emotional words, but I knew he always cared deeply for us. "I want everything I entrusted to your mother to be passed on to you as a thank you for all the gifts you've given me, and for that, I am truly grateful," he wrote. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't hold back my emotions. For a long time, I felt that my father never really understood me, but I was completely wrong. He always understood and valued me. That's probably why he trusted me with that old mini truck, knowing I would value it and use it well. "Mom, I really wish I could have done more for Dad," I said, feeling deep regret. But my mother comforted me with a gentle smile. She seemed to understand the regret I felt, saying, "It's natural to think you could have done more when mourning a parent. But you brought your father great joy and gave him so much love. You were his greatest pride." Hearing her words made me cry again. They also inspired me to make a firm decision. I wouldn't let the company my father built fall into the hands of someone like Kyle, who had wished for his death. I had decided to quietly resist and make a careful plan without letting Kyle know I had acquired a significant fortune. The first step was to contact the corporate executives my father had trusted to build a foundation for their support. They agreed to help, supporting my desire to carry on my father's legacy. Their reactions made it clear that my father had never spoken poorly of me. Meanwhile, my mother and sister acted soothingly during the will reading, keeping Kyle's attention off me. They continued to act the same way in front of Kyle, which made him think he had succeeded and look down on me with arrogance. Hey, do you, abandoned by your father and left a poor man, still intend to stay in this house?" he taunted. "I'm the new president now. Admit your defeat and go back home." Kyle would say these words dismissively, waving his hand as if he was shooing away a small fly. Since becoming CEO, Kyle's arrogant attitude created a tense atmosphere in the company. Despite his high position, he ignored his duties and became rude to his staff. This caused a lot of problems and many skilled employees left unhappy with his leadership. Kyle didn't question his approach and remained overly confident. "Those who can't grasp my superior vision might as well quit immediately," he would say in public, making decisions without listening to anyone else. As problems in the company increased, Kyle enjoyed spending money and living lavishly, while his passion for the business seemed to disappear. When I first met him, he seemed like a great person. He was skilled and even my dad liked him. How had he changed so much? She cried every night, hiding her tears from the children. I couldn't just watch the company fall apart. I was quietly planning my next move. The day came when I acted. I left home early and waited at the office for Kyle. When he walked into the president's office, he was shocked to see me sitting there. "What the hell are you doing? Why are you sitting there? Get this person out of here," he demanded. "The one who should be leaving is you," I replied calmly. "What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?" Kyle looked at me as if I was an annoying insect. Using the assets our father left us, I had bought the majority of the company's shares. An extraordinary general meeting of shareholders was held, and you were officially removed as president. "Kyle, I'm sorry to say, but you are no longer the president of this company." "Wait just a minute," he stammered, confused and repeating words that made no sense. "Don't you understand? I now control 2/3 of this company's shares. You thought the inheritance was just an old mini truck, but that truck turned into money in an unexpected way." Kyle tried to dig into details about the hideaway, but I avoided his questions and changed the subject, which only made him more upset. "The game is over. Leave this place immediately," I told him calmly and handed him several documents. As Kyle looked through them, his face went white. "What is this?" he asked. "These are the minutes from the extraordinary general meeting of shareholders, and this other document is your dismissal notice," I explained. Kyle became very angry, crumpled the papers in his hands, and shouted, "You think this will hold up? I'll take legal action." "Go ahead with legal action. We have good reasons for our actions," I responded calmly. "What reasons?" "You've just been after the old man's wealth and this company from the start." "It's nothing but jealousy," Kyle accused. "Let me ask you directly, Kyle. Have you been using company assets for personal use and signing leasing contracts for your own benefit?" I asked. "What if I have? What's it to you?" Kyle replied, his face turning pale with shock. "How did you know about that?" he stammered as I listed his misconduct, like taking home computers and other appliances meant for company use. "There's more." Computers and TVs that should be at the office are at your house, being used for personal things. Isn't that enough reason to act? I pressed on. Struggling to respond, Kyle frantically tried to defend himself. Why? How do you know about that? He asked, his lips trembling. I kept my gaze fixed on him and continued, you should have been more aware of your responsibilities. Did you become complacent when you thought you controlled everything? I had been gathering information about Kyle's actions from the company's executives. After our father passed away, Kyle became more arrogant. He used to at least pretend to respect others, but as president, he began to shift his work onto others and even fell asleep in his office. This attitude caused many loyal employees who respected my father to leave, frustrated by his behavior. Kyle, upset by the situation, doubted my ability to manage, emphasizing that it was impossible for me to fulfill the role of a manager. I had never worked a day in this company. Think about it, how can someone with no experience in running a company become president? It's impossible to trust management to someone like you, Kyle argued. You're absolutely right, I agreed. I have no intention of becoming the president of this company. My sitting in this chair is just a symbolic message to you. In fact, a new president has already been elected by a different board of directors and is already carrying out their duties. Kyle was stunned. He stood there with his mouth open and his eyes wide, shocked by the turn of events. He had been sure that I was after the presidency and had schemed to replace him. As I've said many times, I'm not after the president's position. My only goal is to honor my father and protect the company he spent his life building, I explained. Who would believe such fancy talk? Kyle retorted. He thought I only cared about the wealth and status that came from our father, not his true worth. After my reply, Kyle trembled with anger for a moment, but then composed himself. Do you think this is over and you can just enjoy it? He scoffed, and then stormed out of the president's office. That night, something unexpected happened. Lauren threw divorce papers at Kyle, ending their marriage. This was a result of his misconduct at the company and his eventual firing. The new president was chosen from among the directors who respected my father and were determined to protect what he built. I felt the company should be led by someone who would continue my father's legacy, a sentiment my mother and sister supported. As I coordinated Kyle's dismissal with the lawyers, Lauren was preparing for the divorce. On the day she mentioned divorce, her hurt voice filled the house with a heavy atmosphere. Why do you turn away from me now? Is it because I've lost the title of president and you've lost interest in me? Kyle asked. Maintaining her calm but firm, Lauren replied, there's no point in talking about betrayal. You were the one who betrayed our relationship from the start. Your love was not for me but for the title of the president's daughter. You neglected our home, didn't help raise our children, showed no respect to our sick father, and in the end, you tried to take everything from our father for yourself. Now it's time for you to face the consequences. Kyle had no response to Lauren's words. She had endured a lot, worrying about her children's futures and the fate of the company. But thankfully, the inheritance from our father gave her a solid financial base to raise her children after the divorce. We planned to live a peaceful life away from conflict with our mother and sister. Our only concern was the possibility of retaliation from Kyle, but he was now out of funds. He had lost a lot of money to an investment scam and was even in debt. This scam involved a man pretending to be from a brokerage firm who was actually a fraudster. Kyle, swayed by convincing words, lost a significant amount. This situation shows how people can exploit those who suddenly have a lot of money. Now, Kyle was suffering the financial consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, I spent fulfilling days taking care of my mother. I enjoyed a peaceful, comfortable life, continuing my work at the tutoring school. My mother and I also took great joy in caring for my nephew Peter, who was very fond of us. His presence added happiness to our daily lives. When I grow up, I'm going to be a president like Grandpa, Peter declared, his words filled with the innocence of childhood dreams. This brought smiles to our faces and even made my mother tear up with emotion. Lauren and I exchanged knowing looks, our smiles reflecting warmth and understanding. You might say that now, but I wouldn't be surprised if you want to become a teacher when you're in college. I teased him gently, reflecting on similar past statements, which made everyone laugh. But I'm not very good at studying, so maybe I won't make a good teacher, he said seriously, furrowing his brow. His earnestness made this even more endearing and prompted more laughter, this time filled with affection. In that moment, filled with an overwhelming sense of happiness, we realized we were truly living in the present, enjoying our family unity and ready to face whatever the future might bring.
My name is Richard Branson. I work in a small factory as a laborer. I have no special qualifications and started working right after finishing high school. I can't afford to quit my job, even though the pay is very low. Because of this, I have just a single $300 bill in my wallet, and there's only about $800 in my bank account. I figured I could manage somehow. One day, I saw a girl who looked very rough. She was wearing a high school uniform, but it wasn't from any local school. It was cold, and she wasn't wearing a coat. Her knees were scraped, and her clothes were a mess. I wondered what was wrong with her. Wasn't she going home? She was sitting there at that time. Maybe she had a stomachache or something. She kept rubbing her legs together and blowing on her hands to warm them up. I thought if I left her alone, she might get into trouble. So I decided to help. I went to a nearby coffee shop and bought some hot drinks and donuts. When I walked over to her, she looked scared and tensed up. "Hey, good evening. Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you," I said. "You looked cold, so I got you something warm. Would you like this?" I handed her a hot lemon tea. She took it and pressed it against her cheek to warm up. "Aren't you hungry? Being hungry makes you feel even colder. Here, would you like to eat this?" I didn't know what kind of donuts teenage girls liked, so I just picked one. She took it and said, "Thank you," in a small voice. "Aren't you going home?" I asked. She shook her head but didn't say anything. I wondered if she had run away from home, but I didn't want to get too involved. I wasn't sure what to do next, but then the wind blew her skirt, and I saw that her legs were covered in painful-looking wounds. "What happened to your legs?" I asked. She quickly pulled her skirt down to cover them, but I had already seen the injuries. "Did someone hurt you? Were you beaten?" She stiffened and didn't seem like she wanted to talk. "Okay, I'm sorry. There are things you don't want to talk about, right? That's fine. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But if you stay here, you might get into trouble. How about going home?" She said in a small voice. "No, I was thinking of going to my dad's place, but it's far away." Her dad's place. That meant she was living with her mom now. I didn't know what was going on, but it seemed complicated. "Why don't you call your dad? Maybe he can come pick you up." I don't know his phone number. I don't even have a cell phone. I was surprised that a teenager these days didn't have a phone. "Do you know his address? Do you know where he lives?" She nodded and showed me a small piece of paper with an address I didn't recognize. "Is this where you can meet him?" She nodded again. "It does seem far, and it's already late." I took out my smartphone and searched for the address. It came up as Greenwood Group UK, a construction company. I wrote down the phone number I found and gave it to her. "Here's a number I found for that address. You should call it tomorrow. You'll probably find out about your dad. It's Greenwood Group UK, so maybe your dad works for a construction company. I hope you can see him." The girl smiled brightly. "All right, you should stay at a nearby hotel tonight. I'll make a reservation for you. You can stay alone, right?" I don't have any money. I didn't have much money either, but I had a $300 bill in my wallet. Maybe it would be enough for one night. "Don't worry, I can cover one night for you. After a warm bath and a good night's sleep in a bed, you should call your dad. But I can't pay you back. Don't worry about it. Just focus on meeting your dad." I booked a room at a nearby hotel that included breakfast for $300. I took the girl there, spoke to the staff, and handed over the money. I also asked them to let her make a phone call in the morning. After that, I left. I felt good about helping her, even though my wallet was empty. A few days later, my factory manager, Mr. John, called me in. "Did you call for me?" I asked, surprised, since it was my first time being called to his office. I went in with a nervous look. Mr. John was wearing an expensive suit, which seemed odd for a small factory manager. "It's Richard, right?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Richard Branson," I replied. "You don't need to come here anymore," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "It means you're fired," he said bluntly. I was shocked and didn't know what to say. "So, pack your things and leave," he added. "Excuse me, can you tell me why? Did I do something wrong?" I asked, still not understanding. "We don't need troublemakers like you in our company," he said. "I don't understand. What makes me a troublemaker?" I asked. "You have connections with the mafia, don't you?" he accused. "No, that's not true," I protested. "I can't believe this. I've never been involved with the mafia." "Say what you want, but the mafia is looking into you. We can't have someone like that working here. We never wanted to hire someone with just a high school diploma in the first place." The old boss used to say things like, "If someone is motivated, that's enough." "Please, I have nothing to do with the mafia. If I lose this job, how will I survive?" I pleaded. "I don't care if you end up on the street. That's not my problem. Maybe you should ask the mafia for help," he said coldly. "I really have nothing to do with the mafia. There must be a mistake. Please, don't fire me," I begged. "No, the decision is final. We don't need people like you in our small factory. Next time you apply for a job, don't lie about stuff like this," he said, ending the conversation. "I'm not lying. I've never been involved with such people. Were you hanging out with bad kids in high school? Are those the kind of people looking for you?" Mr. John asked. "No, that's not possible. Please, Mr. John, I'm telling you the truth." "Enough. Just leave. I've told the office to pay you for today. Don't ever come back to our company again." I kept saying there must be some mistake, but he wouldn't listen at all. He looked at me like I was trash, then pointed at the door and said, "Is that all you've got to say? I've heard your side of the story, and that's enough. Now get out. I've got work to do." It was over. Realizing this was the end, I went to the office and received a thin envelope. It was my last paycheck from the company. Was the 13 years I worked so hard for really worth just this thin envelope? When I said goodbye to my colleagues, they were shocked and said things like, "Why so suddenly?" "That's ridiculous," expressing their regret over my departure. But no matter how much my colleagues regretted it, there was no changing the manager's mind, and no one was willing to stand up for me. They knew that if they did, they might be the next to be fired. Leaving my colleagues with a "take care," I walked out of the company gates I had been going through for 13 years. What am I supposed to do now, being fired so suddenly? All I have is this thin envelope. I just hope I can find another job before the money runs out. Thinking these thoughts, I was looking at the ground beneath my feet when I noticed a black car stopping nearby. Why would a car stop here? Curious, I looked up and saw a black luxury car. "It's in the way," I thought. "Must be some big shot here for the factory. He should hurry up and get inside." The driver, wearing gloves, got out and opened the rear door. A man in an expensive suit and a girl stepped out. The man asked the girl, "Is this the guy?" She nodded. Seeing her nod, I exclaimed, "Oh, you're the girl from that time. So, you did meet your dad, right? That's great. I'm really glad you were able to meet him safely," forgetting my own troubles for a moment. I talked to her, and she smiled brightly and hugged me. "Thanks to you, my daughter was able to come to me safely." "Thank you so much," said her dad. "You're her dad? That's great. I was worried about her but didn't know how to contact you," I replied. "By the way, are you leaving the company so early? Do you have somewhere to be?" "Oh yeah, something like that," I said with a forced laugh. I couldn't tell someone I just met, especially someone who looked like a company president, that I had just been fired. He seemed important, riding in such a fancy car and dressed so well. I felt like I shouldn't even be talking to him. "If you're not in a hurry, I'd like to thank you. It's almost lunchtime. How about a meal?" he asked. "No, thank you. That's too much. I couldn't possibly accept your gratitude for something that was just the right thing to do," I replied. "Come on, don't be like that. Of course, if you have other plans, I won't insist. But if you're free, could you join me? I wouldn't feel right letting you go without properly thanking you. After all, you helped my daughter, and a simple thanks just doesn't seem enough," he said. I initially refused because I had nowhere to be. I had just been fired, and in my sad state, looking for another job wasn't going to go well. So I thought, if he insists, I'll accept his offer. If you insist, then I'll join you, I said, and decided to go along. I got into the car and we went to a high-end restaurant. Excuse me, I'm dressed like this, I said, looking at my work clothes. I had expected a diner at most, so I was surprised. But the man laughed and said, "Don't worry about it. Clothes don't eat the meal," and pushed me forward. He must have been a regular because the hostess didn't make a fuss and even smiled at me. The atmosphere in the private room was luxurious and extraordinary. I thought to myself, wow, this place is very fancy. It feels a bit uncomfortable for someone like me with just a high school diploma. But as the drinks started flowing, things began to feel different. Seeing the girls smile and the warm conversation between her and her father was enough to warm my heart. Not to mention, the fine drinks and luxurious food made me feel like this might be the first and last feast of my life. I was enjoying every bite of my meal. After a while, the man revealed his identity. "I should have introduced myself at the beginning, but that's just how I am," he said, handing me a business card. It read, "Beat of Greenwood Family UK." "Oh my God, Mafia," I exclaimed. "Yes, you're right," he replied calmly, "but a Mafia member is also a parent. Thanks to you, I could reunite with my daughter, and I'm very grateful." "Oh, it was my pleasure," I said. "By the way, I've been wondering, why was she there that day?" "That's because her mother and I divorced years ago," he explained. "She remarried soon after. Her new husband became the vice president of a small factory, but after her mother passed away, his new wife moved in. The president of the factory, who had been kind to my daughter, also passed away. After that, the vice president took over as president, and my daughter was treated poorly." "Is that why her legs were bruised?" I asked. "Yes," he said sadly. "She was hurt in places that wouldn't show, especially on her back. It was terrible. Her mother had given her an amulet before she died and told her to use it if she ever needed help. That amulet had a note with my address. Not having a phone number on it was a bit of an oversight," I commented. "She was trying desperately to find me," he continued. "Even though she's in high school, it was a long distance to walk. By the time you found her, her wallet was empty. If she had stayed out there, she might have frozen to death. It was a tough situation. Her mother's new husband put her through so much pain, and I swore to get revenge for what he did to her." "It doesn't sound good for a Mafia member to say that, but I understand how you feel," I said. "Thank you. What about you? Leaving work at this hour, something must have happened, right?" he asked. It's a bit odd to tell this to someone I just met, especially a boss, but I was actually fired just now, I said. "Fired? Why?" he asked, surprised. "I was wrongfully accused of having connections with antisocial forces. I have no idea how that happened. Just this morning, out of the blue, I was told about it and then fired." "Wait a minute," he said. He called over an executive who was standing by. After a brief whispered exchange, she exclaimed, "Idiots," and turned to me. "I'm really sorry, that was my guy's fault," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "I wanted to thank you so much that I had my men check up on you. They found out where you worked but wanted to make sure you were really there. It seems like they mentioned our organization's name over the phone. That's probably what got back to your boss and led to you being fired. I'm really sorry about that. Let me fix this. I'll talk to your manager tomorrow, explain the misunderstanding, and everything should be okay." "No, it's all right," I replied. "It's not all right. You must be in trouble, right?" he insisted. "Yes, it's true that I'm in a tough spot," I admitted, "but going back to work under a manager who doesn't trust me would be the same old problem. I don't want to work for someone like that." "I see. So, do you have another job lined up?" he asked. "No, embarrassingly, I have nothing. Honestly, if I don't find something by the end of the month, I'm in big trouble. But I still want to stand firm and find a job on my own," I explained. "Good for you. In that case, how about I introduce you to a company run by a friend of mine? They're not involved with the mafia or anything. I think my friend would like you," he offered. "No, that's okay," I said, even though I really wanted to accept his offer. I was tempted, but could I trust it, knowing he was involved with the mafia? Well, If you ever need help, call the number on my card. I'm always here for you, he said with a smile. About a month later, I ended up needing his help. No matter how many interviews I went to, I couldn't find a job. I was starting to think I'd have to settle for part-time work. Then one day, he called me. I'm in the mood for a drink, but I've got no one to drink with. Would you mind keeping me company? Don't worry about the money, I'm inviting you. He made it sound like I wouldn't be a burden, even though he was a mafia boss. I was surprised to see such a kind side of him and decided to accept his invitation. If it's a bar, you really don't want much, right? He asked. That's not true. I'm just picking a bar because I'm more comfortable there than in a fancy restaurant. I've never been to a fancy restaurant. It makes me feel nervous. Honestly, I replied. I feel more comfortable in a casual bar. I see. I guess I wasn't being very thoughtful, he said. No, not at all, I replied, holding up my beer mug. I'll take this, thank you, and I gulped down the beer. So, did you find a job? He asked. Actually, not yet. Being just a high school graduate, it's been really hard. I've applied to a lot of companies, but no luck, I explained. That's tough, he said. I was thinking, would you mind helping me with something for a moment? My heart skipped a beat. Being asked by the mafia to help out didn't sound good. I couldn't help but think it was something bad. But he continued talking in a way that made me feel less worried. Even though I'm with the mafia, it doesn't mean we only do bad things. I just want to get justice for the man who hurt my daughter. Justice? I asked. Yes, over the past month, I've been looking into who did those terrible things to my daughter. It turns out it was the manager of the company you worked for. He acts as the manager, but the previous manager used to wear work clothes and help out on the factory floor. This guy wears expensive suits and never shows up at the factory. He lives in a luxury neighborhood over an hour away by car. That's why he's always late. Exactly, he's the typical executive who doesn't care about the workers. My daughter was like his maid, and it seems she wasn't even fed properly. She was crying while eating just a single bagel. Really? That's terrible, I said, shocked. Yes, it's true. I can't believe he treated my daughter like that, he said angrily, finishing his beer. That's why I need your help. I want to get revenge for my daughter, but I'm not planning anything illegal. I don't want to end up in jail and miss out on time with my daughter because of a guy like him. So, we're going to do it legally. Legally? I asked, curious. Yes, that's why I set up a company. What kind of company? I asked. It's in the same industry, but it doesn't really matter. What I really want to do is take over his company. Take over? Yes, we'll take it over and get rid of the manager. I've got all the evidence against him, he said confidently. He's got a lot of personal debt, mostly from gambling and similar stuff. Now he's using the company's money to pay off his debts. Is he really? I asked, surprised. Yes, that's why the employees' wages are so low. They dropped a lot after the previous manager passed away. That's true. Our salaries did drop sharply after he died, I confirmed. That's the scheme. You all were working to cover his debts. I want to kick him out of the company and make it a place where the employees can earn what they deserve, he explained. What will happen to him if he's kicked out? I asked. Well, he'll probably end up in deep trouble. Plus, his wife only married him for his money. If she finds out he's no longer the president, she'll likely leave him, and I'll make sure no company will hire him, he said confidently. You can do that? I asked, amazed. Hey, I'm the boss of Greenwood. I can handle things like that easily, he replied. I asked for your help because you were also a victim of his actions. I thought maybe you'd want revenge too. Yes, I think all the employees would feel the same way once they know about this, I said. They probably would. If this goes well, I plan to expand that factory even more. I want to make you the manager, he said. Me? A manager? But I'm just a high school graduate. That's impossible, I said, feeling doubtful. What are you talking about? In the past, it wasn't uncommon for high school graduates to become presidents. If you lack education, you make up for it with experience and hard work. I believe you can do it, he encouraged me. If you become the manager, I can trust the factory will be in good hands. The first task will be taking over that factory. Are you in? I understand. Count me in, I agreed. Good, then tonight we'll drink to the future of the new company, he said. And that's how I found myself unexpectedly involved in the plan to take over the factory that had fired me. 2 months later, we had thoroughly investigated the factory and the manager from all angles. We decided to cause significant financial damage to the factory through our takeover plan. "Long time no see, Mr. John," I said when we met again. "Oh, have we met before?" he asked, looking puzzled. "You wouldn't remember a high school graduate employee. It's Richard Branson," I said, revealing my identity. "I was fired under the false accusation of having connections with the mafia." "No, that was just Greenwood calling to check if you were an employee. You used that as a reason to fire me, a high school graduate," I said. "Well, that's not exactly how it was," he stammered. "It's okay. Thanks to that, I found a good job at my current company. I have no hard feelings. In fact, I've come to you with a good offer," I continued. "A good offer? You mean you want to make a deal with us?" he asked, curious. "Yes. Your products are of very high quality, something I know from working here for years. That's why I want to offer you a $8 million contract," I explained. $8 million, he echoed, surprised. "Yes, I'd like you to deliver that amount of goods within 3 weeks. Once the delivery is confirmed, we'll transfer the $8 million to you," I said. "That would be great. So will you accept the contract?" he asked eagerly. "Of course," I said, placing the contract on the table and asking him to sign it. Without reading the details, he was overjoyed by the mention of $8 million and signed it. Knowing his poor administrative skills, I expected this outcome, but it was still amusing to see a company manager behave this way. Once the contract was signed, he pushed his employees hard, making them work without rest. The goods were produced, but when it came time for delivery, a problem arose. No delivery company would accept the job. That was because Greenwood had put a stop to it. Desperate, John himself went looking for any carrier. That's when a truck driven by a member of Greenwood arrived. The goods were loaded onto dozens of trucks, but along the way, they all stopped for various reasons, like vehicle malfunctions. Eventually, the goods didn't arrive by the deadline. I immediately contacted John and went back to the factory. The goods didn't arrive by the deadline. Now our company has suffered a huge loss. This is a breach of contract, I told him. "No, we shipped everything properly," he protested. "It's clearly stated in the contract, isn't it? If the goods don't arrive, you'll pay $8 million, I pointed out. "That's ridiculous," he exclaimed, realizing the mess he was in. "I don't know anything about such a clause," Mr. John stammered, looking at me with wide eyes. "Whether you know about it or not, it's clearly written here in the contract," I replied, pointing to the specific section. "Claiming that you didn't read it won't help you now." "This can't be happening. My company doesn't have $8 million, he exclaimed, panic rising in his voice. "Well, then we have no choice but to take over this factory," I said calmly. "Take over the factory? That's also in the contract?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes, even if the delivery failure was caused by the carrier, your company bears all the responsibility. You signed the contract, didn't you?" I reminded him, holding up the document. "Wait, I didn't understand what I was signing. Losing this factory will ruin everything," he pleaded, starting to realize the gravity of the situation. "It seems so," I said, unmoved by his desperation, "and without the factory, no one will cover your personal debts anymore." "How did you know about my debts?" he asked, shock and fear in his eyes. "We did our homework. That's not all. Your wife will probably leave you too. It seems she married you for your money," I continued, laying out the harsh reality. "So, you knew all this and still tricked me into signing this contract," he said, his face turning pale as he grasped the full extent of his predicament. "It's not just me who has a grudge against you. That's why this happened. Now the factory belongs to our company. Pack your things and leave," I instructed firmly. "This is unbelievable. What am I going to do with all this debt?" he cried, slumping into his chair, his face buried in his hands. After being kicked out of the factory, John went home to his wife, hoping she could help with the debt. He explained the situation, pleading for her support, but his wife, who had enjoyed a life of luxury thanks to his position, was not willing to stick around now that he was broke. She slammed the divorce papers down in front of him and demanded compensation for all the money she claimed to have spent during their marriage. Without the factory, we're finished. I need your help to pay off this debt, John begged. You should have thought about that before you lost everything, she replied coldly. I married you for your money, and now that you're penniless, there's no reason for me to stay. But we've been together for so long. Can't you help me through this? He pleaded, tears in his eyes. No, I've had enough. You're on your own, she said, showing no sympathy. She handed him the divorce papers, demanding a large sum in compensation. This added to his already massive debt, burying him under an insurmountable financial burden. John, now alone and overwhelmed with debt, found himself in a dire situation. With nowhere to turn, he realized that the life he had built was crumbling around him. The weight of his debts and the loss of his wife left him in a deep pit of despair, facing a future filled with uncertainty and hardship. As the reality of his situation set in, John could only think about how he had gotten to this point. The false accusations, the rushed decisions, and the betrayal by those he trusted had led him to this moment of utter ruin. The once proud manager, who had enjoyed a life of comfort and power, now faced a grim and uncertain future, with nothing left but the crushing weight of his mistakes. When I reported everything to the boss, he was very pleased and praised me. Now, that guy won't be able to get a job anywhere ever again. He'll learn what it really means to betray people. Yes, I hope he realizes the consequences of his actions and understands what it's like to treat people so poorly, I replied, feeling a sense of justice. Right now, you're the manager of that factory, the boss continued. You have the opportunity to grow the company, not just for yourself, but for the employees as well, right? No, I didn't do this for myself, I said, shaking my head. I did it for my daughter, for you, and for the employees who have been working hard at the factory. They deserve to be treated with respect and to have a good working environment. I want to make sure they are happy and feel valued. Good. Make sure those employees are happy and taken care of, he said with a nod. Yes, sir, I understand, I replied. With that, I went back to the factory, now as its new manager. My former colleagues were surprised and happy to see me return. Thank you all for staying and continuing to work hard, I said. I know it hasn't been easy, but together, we can make this factory grow and ensure that everyone gets the salary and recognition they deserve. This factory belongs to all of us, and we will make it a place we can be proud of. As I spoke, I could see the relief and excitement in their faces. They were cheering and welcoming me back warmly, and I felt a deep sense of responsibility and commitment to them. I had been away from the factory for a while, and things had changed. The atmosphere was different, but I was determined to bring positive changes. I started by meeting with each department, talking to the workers, and understanding their concerns. They told me about the problems they had faced under the previous manager, who had treated them poorly and neglected their needs. We were struggling with low wages and unfair treatment, one of the workers told me. It felt like no one cared about us. I'm here now, and I care, I reassured them. We're going to make things better. Your hard work will be recognized, and you'll get the pay you deserve. Let's work together to turn this factory around. I spent the next few weeks working closely with the employees, making sure their voices were heard and their needs were met. We implemented new policies to improve working conditions and raise wages to ensure that everyone was paid fairly for their work. We also focused on improving the quality of our products and expanding our market. One day, I gathered everyone for a meeting. I want to thank all of you for your dedication and hard work, I said. We've made great progress and the factory is already seeing the benefits. Our production has increased and our sales are up. This wouldn't have been possible without each and every one of you. The employees cheered and clapped, feeling appreciated and motivated. They were proud of the work they had done and excited about the future of the factory. As the months went by, the factory continued to grow and prosper. We expanded our operations, hired more workers, and increased our production. The employees were happier and more engaged, and the factory became a place where people wanted to work. During one of our company meetings, I addressed the entire staff. I'm so proud of what we've accomplished together. We've turned this factory around and made it a thriving business. But we're not done yet. There's still so much more we can achieve. Let's continue to work hard, support each other, and make this factory the best it can be. The response was overwhelming. The employees were enthusiastic and committed to the future of the factory. They knew that they were part of something special and that their efforts were making a difference. Over time, the factory became known for its high-quality products and excellent working conditions. We built strong relationships with our customers and suppliers, and our reputation grew. We became a model for other companies, showing that treating employees well and focusing on quality can lead to success. Looking back, I was grateful for the opportunity to make a difference. I had come to the factory under difficult circumstances, but with hard work and determination, we had created something amazing. The factory was no longer just a place of work. It was a community, a family, and a source of pride for everyone involved. And through it all, I never forgot why I had taken on this challenge. It was for my daughter, for the employees, and for the future of the factory. Together, we had turned a struggling business into a thriving success, and I couldn't have been prouder of what we had achieved.
Thanks for quitting. Olivia sneered and looked at me. I just silently stared back at her. It's about cutting labor costs. We don't need someone who exploits overtime pay at our company. Jerry seemed pleased too. A week later, I kept getting calls from the company. Hello, I answered. The president spoke. Who exactly are you? I laughed mockingly at his words. I am Nicole Wallace. I'm 57 years old. I've been working at this company for 35 years since graduating from college. Our company is staffed with administrative scriveners, social insurance labor consultants, and tax accountants handling clerical work for our clients. This is especially popular with company presidents who run their businesses alone. These presidents are busy with sales and lack the time for clerical work, so our company takes care of it for them. I belong to the tax department. I got my bookkeeping and tax accountant qualifications during my school days, and that's why I joined this company. Now I'm managing 41 clients, which keeps me quite busy. Even though a part-timer handles the accounting entries, it's still overwhelming. But I can't show any weakness. Our clients are all long-term relationships, and many of them have had their fair share of hardships. Seeing them face adversity, I feel I can't lose either. So here I am in front of my computer again today. Lately, I've been troubled. Jerry and Olivia have been harassing me. Jerry, 6 years younger than me, is the head of the tax department. He used to be just a regular colleague, but his attitude changed drastically 5 months ago when he got promoted. He used to speak politely, but suddenly he started talking down to me. Nicole, what are you doing? You've got some nerve slacking off during work hours. He's always either sarcastic or complaining. I'm looking at documents for tax-saving strategies for our clients. When I talked back, Jerry stayed calm. Just check the manual for that. Don't do anything unnecessary, and if you end up working overtime, don't expect to get paid for it, he said, glaring at me. Unable to respond, I heard Olivia, Jerry's assistant, say, Nicole, you should work more efficiently. At this rate, you'll never finish. That's why you're still a regular employee. Olivia laughed mockingly. I was the first to be offered the promotion to department head, but I declined. Becoming the head meant more time for management and less for client interaction. It was an internal offer, so Jerry and Olivia didn't know about it. I'll make sure to complete my regular duties as well, I managed to say. Still, Jerry and Olivia's harassment continued. You're increasing overtime again. What a waste of overtime, Jerry's angry voice echoed today. Nicole, cut it out. Your constant overtime is dragging down the whole tax department's performance, Olivia sighed. The reason for yesterday's overtime was simple. Jerry had accumulated a month's worth of declaration forms to be filed by the end of the month. After work yesterday, Jerry suddenly said, "Take care of these," and left several client files on my desk. I turned pale when I saw the files. Wait, these all have deadlines this month, right? I asked in confusion, but Jerry was already packing up at his desk. I'm heading out. Take care, he said, and quickly left the office. Good luck, okay? Olivia followed Jerry out, laughing mockingly. Unbelievable, I sighed and opened the client files left on my desk. Some of the files were Olivia's responsibility. I sighed even deeper. I knew why Jerry was harassing me. They wanted me to retire quickly. I have more experience and deeper knowledge in taxation than him. So other members of the tax department come to me with their questions instead of Jerry. There are other reasons why everyone avoids Jerry. He looks greasy and unapproachable. The only female employee who stays near him is Olivia. Jerry likes young women. That's probably why he wants me to retire, so the other female employees will rely on him more. It's such shallow thinking. It gives me chills. There's also the fact that he simply doesn't like me. Olivia was harassing me to curry favor with Jerry. Jerry evaluates the performance of the tax department, so she probably wanted to undermine me to get a good evaluation from him. Anyway, I have to manage these declarations. I have to prepare the tax declarations for my assigned companies, but it looks like I won't finish today's work either. If I try to claim overtime, I'll just get complaints from Jerry and Olivia. So I resigned myself to unpaid overtime. Then, one day, I was suddenly called to the president's office. Our company had just had a change of president. The original president's father had been managing the company since it was founded, and he had recently handed it over to his son. The son had always worked at another company and wasn't fully familiar with ours, but he had to take over because his father had suddenly fallen ill. "Excuse me," I said as I entered the president's office. I noticed Jerry and Olivia there, both with unpleasant smirks on their faces. "Why are Jerry and the others here?" I muttered quietly so no one else could hear. In this tense and strange atmosphere, the president spoke. "Nicole, we'll need you to resign by the end of this month." "Excuse me? What do you mean?" I asked, my mind spinning. "I heard from Jerry and Olivia that you've been overbilling for overtime. Other members of the tax department have only about 16 hours of overtime per month, but Nicole, you're already over 83 hours. Don't you find that odd? Jerry and Olivia have 0 overtime this month. Impressive, right?" The president looked at me sternly. The reason my overtime was so high this month was that I was doing Jerry and Olivia's work. But if I said it was Jerry's instructions, it would seem like my own inability to manage time. So I just stated the facts. I haven't overbilled for overtime. It's because I couldn't finish my work within regular hours. The president sighed deeply. "I'm doubtful, but there's no evidence, so I won't pursue it further. However, we can't continue to employ someone who works that slowly, so I want you to resign." The president's mind seemed made up. Me being told to leave the company I had dedicated my entire 35-year career to. I was tired too. No matter how much more I did beyond my own work, it was never appreciated. Instead, I ended up having to take on Jerry and Olivia's work as well. "Yes, I understand. I'll resign at the end of this month." I realized I had already said that to the president. I glanced at Jerry and Olivia. They were smiling smugly, looking very pleased. After leaving the president's office with them, Olivia looked at me and said, "Thanks for quitting." Olivia sneered at me. I just silently stared back at her. Jerry also looked down on me the same way. "We're cutting labor costs. We don't need someone who exploits overtime pay at our company." Jerry seemed pleased too. While watching the two of them talk so cheerily, I thought about the handover process and started creating the handover documents for all my clients. Of course, I didn't miss saying goodbye to the people I was handing over to. I tried to get an appointment with the president to say goodbye in person. For the presidents I couldn't meet, I sent letters and informed them of my successor. A week after I resigned, I was relaxing at home. I had been busy with the handover until my resignation and had been extremely busy even before that. A little relaxation shouldn't be a problem. As I was thinking this, my mobile phone rang. When I checked the call, it was from the company. What could they want now? I made sure to take care of the social insurance procedures. I didn't answer the phone, but then the company called several more times. In fact, I had also received several calls from Jerry and Olivia's personal mobile phones. Maybe they thought I'd answer if it was from the company. Reluctantly, I decided to answer. Hello? Nicole, it's a mess right now, the president said as soon as I answered. Who exactly are you? I laughed mockingly at his words. Who am I? Just an unemployed lady. I've resigned from the company and I'm nothing else, right? Then the president spoke urgently. Since you left, we've had 55 calls to stop transactions with the company. Please come back immediately. The president said his piece and hung up. He must be really panicked. I guess I have no choice. I got up reluctantly and headed to the company. As soon as I arrived, Jerry and Olivia were waiting. Both of their faces were pale, and they had dark circles under their eyes. What's wrong with both of you? I asked, surprised at their drastic change in appearance. Jerry glared at me and said, Since you left, we've been getting calls one after another to stop transactions. Not just from your clients, but from prospective companies we were planning to introduce. What did you do? Olivia also looked at me with suspicion. I never thought Nicole would do something so underhanded. I'm truly disillusioned. The reason they both looked so haggard was probably due to dealing with the cancellations. I hadn't done anything to the clients, but I had a guess why they were canceling their transactions. Well, the cancellations might be unavoidable this time, I muttered. Jerry yelled, So you did do something, didn't you? Get to the president's office now. He then took me to the president's office. President, I brought her, Jerry declared forcefully as he opened the door. Olivia followed in a hurry. Oh, I've been waiting, the president said, looking me in the eyes. Jerry accused me like I was the culprit. It appears that Nicole was involved in the cessation of transactions with our clients. We should not only make her resign, but also sue her for damages, Olivia argued vehemently, though her language was careful in front of the president. The president ignored them and asked, Why did so many companies stop transactions after you left? I took a deep breath and answered clearly, Don't you understand? Our clients don't need us to manage their taxes. There are tax accountant firms that do it cheaper. Yet they continued with us because I was here. Jerry snapped at me. What's with that attitude towards the president? And you think you're worth that much? Olivia taunted. There's no way it has to be Nicole. The president looked serious. Jerry and Olivia work based on the manual, optimizing operations, but I do more than that. I offer tax-saving strategies tailored to our clients' situations. Uniform responses don't always serve the client's best interests. Many clients preferred my approach and stayed because of it. Jerry got angry. How can we afford to give such detailed attention to each case? It takes too much time. That's right, it's inefficient, Olivia strongly agreed. The president sighed deeply and said, Actually, I just got a call from Dad, the former president. Some of the clients who stopped transactions had gone directly to him to negotiate about Nicole. I was surprised to hear this. I hadn't expected the clients to go that far for me. Dad said that the tax department was viable because of Nicole. She not only managed her clients, but also supported her colleagues' clients, and she has knowledge that Jerry can't match. Dad also said that if Nicole hadn't declined, she would have been in a higher position than a department head by now. The president spoke with a pained expression. No way. Olivia looked shocked. She probably couldn't believe I might have been her boss. The president continued, I'm really sorry for making you resign, but can we cancel your resignation, Nicole? You're needed at our company. My father also strongly said so. I was honestly happy about the president's changed opinion, but I couldn't accept it. Then Jerry interrupted, President, what do you mean she's better than me? I can't accept this. Jerry was visibly upset. Olivia also protested. Jerry is a wonderful boss who cares for his subordinates, and yet you choose Nicole over him. That's unacceptable. The president looked sternly at them. Actually, since Nicole resigned, we've been receiving numerous complaints from the tax department. You two seem to have been pushing your work onto others, haven't you? What? Why would you say that? Jerry's face turned pale. The president started speaking with a look of disgust. I've heard from the employees. Jerry, you've been pushing the preparation of your clients' declaration forms onto your subordinates, haven't you? Including Olivia's work for many clients. Next to Jerry, who was getting paler, Olivia trembled when her name was mentioned. There was a leak saying you've been pushing your work onto Nicole until she resigned. Jerry, you were calling her a salary thief. It seems the roles are reversed, aren't they? The president spoke with a sigh. No, that's not true. Jerry was visibly flustered, unable to come up with an excuse. Observing Jerry and Olivia turning pale together, the president continued, also, there was a leak that you two are in a relationship. You were often seen leaving work together, but Jerry, you're married, aren't you? The president glared at Jerry and Olivia. I was just mentoring Olivia as her superior. Nothing inappropriate. Jerry struggled to find the words when the president produced several receipts. These are receipts queried by the accounting department. These dining expenses filed by Jerry, who were they with? Certainly not with clients, right? Jerry was sweating profusely, unable to speak. Olivia's face turned ghostly pale. Jerry and Olivia, you've neglected your duty and inflated expense claims. Plus, you're having an affair in the office despite being married. According to company policy, I'm terminating your employment as of today, the president told them calmly and straightforwardly. Jerry and Olivia tried to resist. Please wait. I'll retract the receipt claims. Just don't fire me. I have a family. Jerry desperately tried to reverse his firing. Olivia did the same. Please, I don't want to be fired. I'll apologize to Nicole and the others for dumping work on them. Olivia was on the verge of tears, realizing the severity of being fired for neglecting work and having an affair with a supervisor. She must have been worried about her reputation. I advised Jerry and Olivia, why don't you just stop resisting? It's undignified. Jerry glared at me. Shut up. What would a single person like you understand? I sighed and said, Jerry, you were the one who got me fired. It's just karma. What goes around comes around. Why don't you take some responsibility and reflect a bit? Damn it, Jerry looked frustrated. Olivia bit her lip. I haven't reported this yet, but there's more to Jerry and Olivia's misconduct. Should I share more details? I asked the president with a smile. Jerry and Olivia's behavior was well known in the tax department. Their stories had reached me whether I liked it or not. No, please don't, Nicole. Stop. Both were frantically trying to stop me. I gave them an ultimatum. Wrongdoings eventually come to light. It would be better for you to face reality before it gets worse. At my words, both of them collapsed to their knees. Ultimately, Jerry and Olivia were fired on the spot. I revealed their misdeeds afterward. These included Jerry faking business trips to go out with Olivia for days and harassing employees they disliked into quitting. They repeatedly reprimanded and pressured employees out of my sight and suddenly assigned work with tight deadlines. The employees who resigned asked me to keep quiet, but now they are happily working at other companies, so I decided it was okay to speak up. The president was furious at my revelation. He expressed his anger about cutting their final salary and also planned to thoroughly investigate past inflated expense claims. Jerry was begging the president, tears in his eyes, please don't cut my salary. What will I tell my family if they find out? Eventually, Jerry and Olivia's affair was exposed to Jerry's wife, and Jerry ended up getting divorced. The two are now facing claims for compensation in the divorce lawsuit. I know this because, for some reason, Jerry contacted me. Please, can you persuade the president to reconsider the firing? Olivia and I are in a real bind now. Apparently, Jerry and Olivia are struggling to find new jobs. The tax industry is somewhat insular. If you commit too many misdeeds, word spreads quickly through the industry's network. That's why no one is willing to hire Jerry and Olivia. They need money for the divorce compensation and living expenses, so now they're working day labor at construction sites. People used to office work suddenly doing hard labor outdoors must be tough. Olivia often calls me crying, "Nicole, please help. I just wanted a raise and a better life. I never really liked Jerry, and this situation is unbearable," Olivia would say, crying. However, Jerry and Olivia's predicament is their own doing. Many people, including myself, have been victims of their actions. So I told Olivia, "This is all your own fault, Olivia. You can't undo what's been done. It will be hard to return to the same path. You're just going to have to deal with the hardships." "No way," Olivia cried out in despair. This was the outcome of Olivia's actions. I hope she continues to regret her actions in the future. As for me, I'm still enjoying a relaxed lifestyle away from work. The president has been begging me to return, but I have declined. After being told to resign once, I don't think I'll go back. Sometimes I help out at a friend's tax office to earn a bit of money. Maybe once things settle down, I'll start my own office like my friend. In my own office, no one can complain about my working style. I can fully dedicate myself to my clients. As a tax accountant, I want to be on equal footing with my clients, not as a teacher but as part of the service industry. My second life has just begun. I'm looking forward to delving into what I want to do next. Olivia's tears and pleas for help continued to come. "Nicole, please help. I just wanted a better life," she would cry. But her words didn't move me. The memory of the stress and harassment I endured because of her and Jerry was still fresh in my mind. "Olivia, you made your bed, and now you have to lie in it," I would tell her. "You can't expect sympathy when you showed none to others." "But it's so hard," Olivia would sob. "I never imagined it would turn out like this." "Actions have consequences," I replied. "You and Jerry brought this on yourselves. You can't go back and undo it. Now you have to face the results of what you've done." Olivia's cries of despair were the echoes of her own choices. It was a harsh lesson, but one she needed to learn. As for me, I found peace in my new routine. Helping out at my friend's tax office was rewarding. I enjoyed the work without the toxic atmosphere Jerry and Olivia had created. The president's requests for me to return became more frequent. "Please come back, Nicole. We need you," he would say. "I'm sorry, but I can't return," I would reply each time. "I appreciate the offer, but I've moved on." Starting my own office became a clearer goal each day. In my own space, I would set the rules. No more dealing with unfair treatment or office politics. I would focus on providing the best service to my clients, building relationships based on trust and respect. In this new chapter of my life, I could finally breathe. I felt lighter, free from the burdens of the past. My days were filled with purpose, and my nights were peaceful, free from the anxiety that had once plagued me. Looking forward, I saw endless possibilities. I could expand my skills, take on new challenges, and build something of my own. My second life was just beginning, and I was excited about the future. No longer weighed down by the negativity of my old job, I could now fully embrace the opportunities ahead. As I planned my new business, I remembered the support and trust my clients had shown me. They were the reason I continued in this field. Their belief in my abilities was the foundation of my new venture. With them in mind, I knew I would succeed. My journey had been tough, but it had made me stronger. Now I was ready to turn the page and start a new chapter. With renewed energy and a clear vision, I looked forward to what was to come. My past experiences had taught me valuable lessons, and I was eager to apply them in my new role. In the end, Olivia and Jerry's downfall served as a reminder of the importance of integrity and respect in the workplace. Their story was a cautionary tale, one that reinforced my commitment to building a positive and supportive environment in my own office. As I moved forward, I carried with me the knowledge that I could overcome any obstacle. My resilience and determination had brought me this far, and they would continue to guide me in the future. My second life was not just a continuation of the old, but a new beginning, full of promise and potential. One day at the hospital where I work, I ran into a friend of my mom's named Karen. She looked at me in surprise and said, "What are you doing here? You're out of place. If you're looking for a job, you won't find one. Go back home." Karen's comment shocked the doctors around us. They didn't know what to say. I thought, what is she talking about? I hope this doesn't turn into a big issue. It might be too late already. It seemed Karen didn't realize that making an enemy of me was not a good idea. I couldn't keep quiet anymore and confronted her. "Karen, you really don't hold back, do you? Or do you just not get it?" Looking confused, she answered, "Huh? What are you talking about?" "My name is Olivia. I'm 37 years old, a mother of an active 9-year-old daughter and a playful 2-year-old son. My husband, Jackson, who is 3 years younger than me, is a dedicated nurse at a general hospital. I used to work too, but since having our second child, I've been on maternity leave. We once lived in a small 3-bedroom apartment, but before our son was born, we moved into a second-hand house with a loan. It needs some work but could be a cozy home. It has a big garden for the kids to play in and a rooftop balcony with a calming view. The house is old, which adds to its charm, and my husband and I really like it. Near our house is a beautiful park where the kids can play all they want, and it's our little paradise on weekends. Late in my second pregnancy, I met a mom in that park who introduced herself as Karen. Since her daughter and mine are the same age and often play together, Karen and I became friends and had many conversations. Karen always wears bright designer clothes, and her daughter is dressed in well-known brands. When I found out Karen worked as a surgeon at a well-known hospital, I guessed it might be the same one where my husband Jackson works. Out of curiosity, I asked her about it, and to my surprise, she did work there. Excited by this coincidence, she said with sparkling eyes, "This is such a coincidence. I'd love to meet your husband." So we decided to invite her over for tea the next weekend. On the promised Sunday, Karen and her daughter came to our house. But as soon as she walked in, she started looking around suspiciously, as if she was searching for something. "This house feels old. Did you inherit it from your family?" she asked. "No," I replied. "We bought it secondhand and moved in just last year. It is indeed old." As my husband spoke, Karen examined each piece of furniture as if she was evaluating its worth. We were taken aback by her rudeness. Meanwhile, the children played happily in the playroom, and only the adults were quietly enjoying tea in the living room. "Jackson, which department do you work in at the hospital?" Karen asked. "I work in the emergency department," Jackson said, a bit embarrassed. "But actually, I'm not a doctor, I'm a nurse. I support the doctors." "Really? You're a nurse?" she asked. "Yes, I graduated from medical school, but haven't passed the licensing exam yet. I plan to retake it next year." Karen's eyes widened, and she seemed to choose her words carefully. It's quite unusual to hear of someone graduating from medical school and not passing the licensing exam. Her next words made us uncomfortable. "Can a nurse's salary really support a family with children? Are you managing the mortgage payments and living expenses okay? Or is that why you chose an old second-hand house?" Her questions hurt us, and all we could do was give an erased smile. Karen made several more rude remarks, and we were speechless. After she left, I apologized to Jackson for the uncomfortable situation. "Jackson, I'm really sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable because of what Karen did. Maybe I should keep some distance from her from now on." "Don't worry about it," Jackson reassured me with a warm smile. "It was unexpected, but her personality certainly stands out. It's good to connect with other moms in the neighborhood, but I decided it would be best to not get too involved with Karen in the future." As time passed, new changes came to our family. I reached full term and safely gave birth to our second son. After celebrating his first birthday, I started to think about returning to work. Luckily, Jack's parents live nearby and have been a great help with the kids. Then, one day, I had some business at the hospital where my husband works. With some time before my meeting, I grabbed a hot coffee at the hospital cafe and was taking a moment to relax when I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was Karen. Oh my, isn't that Olivia? It's been such a long time. Hello, Karen. How have you been? Good. What brings you here today? Are you here to see Jackson? Maybe for a job interview or something? It must be tough on just Jack's income, right? Her tone was sarcastic, and she had a smug look as she spoke. Wanting to avoid a troublesome conversation, I responded lightly, well, something like that. However, Karen continued to pry, looking me over. This hospital has various stores, right? So where are you working part-time? At the convenience store or maybe the restaurant? After a brief silence, I curtly replied, sorry, it's about time for my appointment. I quickly left the cafe and moved swiftly through the hospital. I took the elevator to the top floor. My destination was the director's office, where I had an important job consultation. After about an hour of discussion, I headed to the large auditorium of the university for my next appointment. There was an important announcement scheduled that afternoon with all the hospital staff gathered. On the way to the auditorium by chance, I ran into Jackson. Jackson, that's great. After the director's talk, let's go for lunch together, I suggested. Sounds good. It's a bit of a walk, but how about pasta? He offered with a smile. The pasta place behind the hospital sounds good. I haven't been there in a long time. I'm actually looking forward to it. I agreed happily. It had been a while since I had been to the hospital, so lunch with my husband was a rare treat. In the hallway to the auditorium, I ran into several doctors and engaged in brief conversations while exchanging greetings. Jackson moved ahead quickly, and I followed at a leisurely pace towards the passageway leading to the auditorium. I met some colleague doctors. Olivia, it's really been a while, and I heard you had a child. Congratulations, they said warmly. Another doctor joined in. Olivia, you were such a big help here. We've been in quite a stir since you left, he said with a laugh, hinting at their struggles. Then another asked with interest, is your turn imminent? The reunion was comforting, filled with nostalgia and relief to see my colleagues well. But the atmosphere quickly changed when Karen appeared. Olivia, why are you here? Karen asked curiously. Are you heading to the auditorium by any chance? Yes, that's right. I have some business, I responded modestly yet clearly with several colleagues around. But Karen's questions grew more pressing. But the gathering is only for doctors and nurses, right? Why would a part-timer be here? She asked, not hiding her skepticism. Her remark brought silence to the corridor, a silence that felt heavy. A part-time lady like her, a doctor muttered. Is she okay? Another murmured worriedly. I tried to ignore Karen's words, not wanting to stir up unnecessary trouble. However, Karen seemed only more provoked. Why are you ignoring me? It's like you don't think at all. You, Karen exclaimed with a sneer. Lost your way? The auditorium isn't this way. If you're looking for part-time work, go the other direction. Now, please leave, she commanded, looking down on me. The doctors present were appalled by Karen's behavior, but they stood by me, trying to diffuse the situation. They raised their voices in unison against Karen. Disappointment and anger were evident on their faces, and their voices contained a strong sense of rejection toward her actions. Hold on, what kind of way is that to speak to Olivia? Don't you have any manners? Apologize to her right now, they demanded, not just disapproving but reproaching Karen's conduct. The doctors gathered, looking tense, and confronted Karen. The atmosphere was charged with tension. Faced with the united front against her, Karen appeared confused and at a loss for words. What's going on? I just pointed out that she doesn't belong here. The meeting is only for relevant personnel, and she doesn't fit the bill, right? She tried to justify her stance. But my patience had reached its limit. With a composed tone, but with content sharp as a blade, I addressed Karen. Karen, you really are brave, aren't you? Or is it that you simply can't read the room? I critiqued calmly. Unable to find a rebuttal, she stared back at me, perplexed. How? What did you just say? I calmly made my point clear. You'll understand soon enough the consequences your actions and careless remarks could bring. The doctors around us showed no sympathy for Karen. Look, your future here is now utterly uncertain, they told her sharply. You might want to start looking for another job while you still can. They nodded to each other, clearly having cornered Karen, who was still unable to hide her panic and anger. So why on earth are all of you defending this non-regular employee so much? I don't understand why you rate her so highly, she raised her voice. The conversation among the doctors echoed in the hallway. Are you the new surgical specialist who joined last year? One doctor asked her. So that's why you don't know Olivia. That's quite pitiful, another added. Karen, with anger on her face and indignation in her tone, retorted, What can you explain what you mean by that? Her anger stemmed from the belief that judging people by their professional standing, regardless of their duties as a doctor, was against human dignity. The fact that someone with such values was in our workplace was deeply shocking to me, and I couldn't help but feel distrustful. Karen seemed unaware, but in fact, I was the very person she should respect the most. The other doctors completely ignored Karen's questions and left her with cold stares, quietly leaving the scene. Well, Karen, we can talk more about this later. You may find my husband's position as a nurse pitiable, but no matter how hard you try, you can never be like Jackson. Besides, the fact that you find meaning in competing shows a great misunderstanding on your part, I said. Karen became flustered. Wait a minute, who on earth are you? You're not just a part-timer, are you? She raised her voice. I smiled secretly and replied, As I've already said, you'll come to understand shortly. With that, I hurried off toward the auditorium. As I entered, a large number of doctors had already gathered, and the director stood in front of the screen as most of the attendees had arrived. Everyone, thank you for gathering here during your busy schedules. Today, I would like to discuss the future direction of our hospital. He began and then proceeded to make an important announcement. Seeing Jackson in the crowd, he approached me and whispered, Olivia, good timing. I happened to overhear a bit earlier. Was there some trouble with Karen? Yes, she did point out something minor, but it's not a big deal. Interestingly, it seems she has misunderstood me for a part-time worker at this hospital. I replied, and Jack looked shocked. He responded, No way, Olivia as a part-timer. We couldn't help but laugh at how ridiculous the situation was. During this, the director finished explaining the annual business plan and moved on to an important personnel announcement. As you all know, our hospital has enough doctors and nurses. To further improve our medical services, we plan to start overseas training programs. The first training is scheduled in 3 months, and we will select 6 doctors and 6 nurses for it, he announced. This news was met with cheers from the doctors, and everyone was excited about the opportunity. Overseas training was a great chance to learn about the latest medical practices worldwide, and since it was the hospital's first initiative of its kind, everyone was thrilled. The director then said, Now, let's move on to announcing the selected 11. I remarked with a slight surprise, Look, the medical students have already been chosen. Jack listened silently next to me, waiting for the announcement to continue. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Karen. With her excellent clinical skills and remarkable treatment results, the director announced. There was no dispute in her selection. Surprisingly, Karen, who had just been in a conflict, was the first chosen as a trainee. The applause and cheers in the hall seemed to celebrate each accomplishment and effort. As Karen stepped forward, whispers of her notable achievements in medicine spread, highlighting her recognition among peers. The director continued with expectation. Now let's proceed with announcing the names of the rest who have been selected. A silence of mixed tension and anticipation fell as the names of the chosen 11 were called out one by one. Although Jack's name was not called this time, his expression showed no disappointment. He quietly watched with a sense of celebration as each selected individual stepped forward. Addressing the 11 lined up on stage, the director asked, "Are all of you ready in spirit for the training? Please share a word about your enthusiasm and determination." He encouraged them gently. Each gave a brief but resolute speech, reaffirming their strong intentions. After everyone had spoken, it was finally Karen's turn. She spoke with proper decorum yet confidently. "I am truly grateful for this training opportunity. I aim to help our hospital progress further with the advanced medical techniques I will learn abroad," she said with a polished greeting. Then she turned slowly towards where we were seated and continued in her assertive tone. "However, this hospital has inexperienced nurses who continue to fail the national exam and bold individuals who try to attend medical conferences despite not being regular staff. I intend to improve and transform all these aspects." Karen's bold statement changed the mood in the room, and the looks directed at her turned cold. Her words brought out the hospital's tensions and showed how risky youthful overconfidence can be. The director's intense gaze seemed to freeze the room, adding gravity to the situation. Maintaining his calm, the director asked Karen, "Karen, that comment was about those two sitting there, wasn't it?" His smile was calm, but didn't reach his eyes. Confidently nodding, Karen replied, "Yes, exactly. There are those unfit for this noble assembly." Remaining composed, the director then called out unexpectedly, "Olivia, could you come forward, please?" With this invitation, I, who had been just an observer, suddenly became the center of attention. Confused and beginning to lose her confidence, Karen asked, "Why her? Why are you calling her name?" The director, showing disappointment towards Karen, said in a quiet voice, "Karen, I am disappointed in you. Olivia, please introduce yourself to everyone." Taking a deep breath, I started, "Hello, everyone. It's been a while. I am Olivia, the chief of the medical department. I apologize for any inconvenience my maternity leave may have caused, but I will be resuming my duties next month. I look forward to working with you all again." Karen's voice couldn't hide her surprise. "Wait, she's the chief of the medical department." Her eyes searched the room for confirmation. Indeed, as the head of the medical team, I was about to return to my role. I had taken a 3-year parental leave to give birth to and raise my first son. The director, confirming the truth, added quietly, "By the way, Olivia is my daughter." His words rang clear in the room, clearly defining the situation. Karen's expression shifted from confusion to shock. Her mouth opens as if she wanted to object, but no words came out. The room, filled with hospital staff, couldn't hold back, and suppressed laughter spilled out at the unexpected turn of events. The director spoke in a relaxed tone, "Karen, for this upcoming overseas training, you have been assigned to be the team leader. Your deployment will be in a conflict zone in the Middle East. There is a shortage of both medication and medical equipment, and it's going to be very challenging. It will be interesting to see how well your skills hold up there. But don't worry, Olivia will be there to support you. Try to learn as much as you can under her guidance." Proud, Karen responded with dignity, "I am a doctor too. Although I have no experience working abroad, my clinical skills and treatment records are first class. I will not allow myself to be underestimated." I replied to Karen with a calm but firm voice, "Let me make one thing clear, Karen. In the near future, I am going to take over the directorship of this hospital from my father. Do you understand the weight of this fact?" Karen's expression stiffened. Seeing this, I continued, "Yes, it seems you understand well. Depending on my decision, your future in this hospital may be affected." Karen could no longer hide her agitation. "I haven't heard such a thing," she muttered. Jackson intervened calmly, adding quietly, "Karen, we had not informed you about that matter beforehand. Your disrespectful attitude towards Olivia may well be something you deeply regret in the future." Towards the end of the meeting, the director stated firmly, "Please, everyone, a bit of silence. Karen in the discussions here, in the end, results are everything. No matter how excellent you may be, that is just one aspect. What's important is the results you can achieve in this hospital, and on that front, I have great expectations of you. Karen fell silent at the director's words, bowed her head, and nodded without saying anything. The director concluded, "Today's meeting is adjourned." As his words ended, everyone in the auditorium stood up and returned to their respective places. Stepping out of the director's office leisurely, I casually said, "Shall we go for lunch? I've got a craving for pasta today." Side by side with Jackson, we left the meeting behind us. I started walking towards our favorite pasta place behind the hospital, leaving the building behind. As we were about to pass the small smoking area set up behind the hospital, I spotted Karen. She was deep in thought, taking a drag of her cigarette. When our eyes met, Karen awkwardly looked away. Just then, a loud crash caught our attention. A car had rear-ended another in an accident. Jack and I sprang into action immediately. The area was nearly deserted, so it was crucial for us to move quickly to help. "Are you okay?" Jack called out with concern and quickly checked on the people involved in the accident. One was the driver in the car that was hit, and another was a pedestrian who happened to be walking by. Karen also rushed to the accident scene, but seemed overwhelmed by the chaos. Acting on my medical instincts, I began to give directions. "Jackson, quickly get that man into a safe position and check his pulse," I instructed. Jack moved without wasting any time, following my instructions promptly. As an emergency nurse, Jack had received special training, including attending surgeries I conducted. I had trained him rigorously, which helped him develop exceptional practical skills compared to other nurses. I then directed Karen with calm and clarity. "Karen, check if that elderly person is bleeding and assess their level of consciousness." However, Karen seemed paralyzed by the seriousness of the situation, standing still without moving. My voice grew firmer as I insisted, "Karen, do you understand what I'm saying? Please respond quickly." Her voice was tense. Karen was clearly overwhelmed, and with an unstable voice, she replied, "Ah, yes, what should I do?" Her panic was evident and seemed to add to the confusion at the scene. I rebuked Karen firmly yet patiently. "Don't you know what to do in an emergency? I doubt you're even a surgeon." Karen responded with what could be perceived as anger. "That's not true. There's nothing I can't do." But her actions, though active, clearly lacked effective measures, and she was just bustling about the scene. I then looked to Jackson. "Jackson, could you measure that elderly person's blood pressure and make sure there's no bleeding?" I gave the orders calmly. Jackson promptly replied, "Understood," and began to manage the situation. The accident scene started to regain some order with our swift response. Jack spoke to Karen with unusual sternness. "Karen, come over here and help." Karen reacted to Jack's command. "What do you mean? A nurse asking for such a thing?" she complained. But Jack cut her off. "This is no place for someone who can't do anything. If you're not going to help in this critical moment where lives are at stake, please step back," he said decisively. Karen was at a loss for words and stepped back from the scene silently. Jackson assessed the situation and reported to me, "The vitals are stable, but there might be internal damage. We should conduct a thorough examination as soon as possible." As professionals, we showed readiness to collaborate with other medical staff around us, doing our best for the patients. I led the response steadily. "Let's begin the procedures then. And the driver over there seems disoriented, but I don't see any serious symptoms. Let's move him out of here. Karen, could you please call an ambulance on your cell phone?" Despite my instructions, Karen stood frozen, unable to move. I addressed her with suspicion. "Karen, I'm speaking to you. Do you hear me?" Karen seemed confused, hesitantly murmuring, what's the number for the ambulance again?" Jack intervened. "Just give me that phone." He stepped in and took over, arranging for the ambulance. About 10 minutes later, police and fire department personnel arrived, and the once chaotic accident scene started to be sorted out gradually. People gathered, including doctors, department heads, medical students, and even professors. Without being disturbed by this, I spoke to Karen with calm and stern emphasis on the gravity of the situation. Karen, to be frank, your actions earlier were more of a hindrance than a help. What exactly can you say you've accomplished? I posed the direct question. Karen was silent, unable to answer. In the medical field, every minute, every second can determine the outcome. This is not a place to protect your ego, I continued. Karen's voice was barely audible as she apologized. I'm sorry. The crowd at the accident scene quietly observed their exchange, and the director himself was also present. Karen just seemed out of place and embarrassed. I continued, Karen, you've looked down on Jack as just a nurse, but the fact is, your positions are different. There's no meaning in comparing you and Jackson. He is one of the most competent nurses in this hospital. Can't you see now how powerless and insufficient your actions were in this situation? Karen stubbornly retorted, if I had more experience in emergency situations, I could handle it perfectly well. But Jack sensed the uncertainty behind her words and calmly pointed out her flaw. You're always driven by a desire to have your accomplishments recognized, but your actual skills in the field are still immature. You've just demonstrated that yourself, he asserted. He continued, you say you'll gain experience in emergency treatment in the future, but this moment is also a practical situation. Given your current state, it's unlikely you'll have further opportunities to experience the field in the future. Karen's confidence began to show cracks, and she seemed on the verge of tears, aware of the eyes around her. Yet the medical field, dealing with lives, demands proper judgment and strictness. Therefore, I had to make a tough decision that would impact Karen's future. Karen, I regret to say this, but your name will be removed from the Overseas Training Program candidate list, I declared. Karen was taken aback. What? I looked to the director for confirmation. Father, this decision is acceptable, correct? The director nodded deeply. No problem. This incident has given me a clear understanding of her capabilities. I have great expectations for Jack. We have always selected trainees based on their grades, but it may be necessary to reconsider our selection system in light of this. His quiet but firm response marked a complete defeat for Karen. With a calm but resolute voice, I advised Karen, Karen, it's important for you to relearn from the basics. Only then will you have the right to compete at the same level as Jack. Also, take to heart the dangers of judging a person's worth by their appearance. While I considered letting you go from the workplace, I have decided to give you one more chance, the last chance. Make the most of this opportunity and show us your full effort, I advised sternly yet justly. Afterward, they quietly left the scene, but the looks from the doctors around Karen were cold, filled with disappointment and disapproval. Their evaluation of her future was seemingly already set. Weeks passed, and the long-awaited departure day for the overseas training arrived. Jack and I headed to the airport, excited to acquire new knowledge and experience. I heard that Karen resigned from the hospital a month after the incident. She couldn't handle the cold stares from those around her and chose to put her pride first. Personally, I thought that was for the best. A doctor who prioritizes pride over everything else shouldn't be responsible for patients' lives, and no one would want to trust their life to such a person. On the way to the airport, I spoke to Jackson with hopeful words. Jackson, let's use our skills to make this hospital one of the most famous in the world. Sharing that passion and reaffirming his determination, Jackson replied, that's right. I need to work even harder and get my medical license as soon as possible. And so, I quietly made a promise to myself again, reaffirming my strong commitment as a doctor to fulfill my duties.